Gorgeous gaming, stunning streams, unbelievable bandwidth. Welcome to another Lifestyles of Gagillionaires. Meet the AT&T Fiber customers winning at life with hyper-gig speeds. Say hello to the Walkers, a family of not one but 4 Gagillionaires, each living up their Gagillionaire life at ludicrous internet speed. First up, Anna Walker. She dominates streaming like the matriarch she is. No show ever goes unwatched under her watch.
Next episode.
Next up, Peter Walker. There's no stopping this dad bod from showing up to his virtual workout sessions.
Let's go leg day.
And finally, the Walker twins. They may look alike but couldn't internet more differently. Harry dominates his fellow online gamers while Heather group video chats with friends.
Ooh, nice background filter, Jess.
Live like a Gagillionaire. Get internet that upgrades everything. AT&T Fiber, now with speeds up to 5 gigs.
Limited availability in select areas. Speeds not guaranteed. Single device wired speed. Max 4.7 gig per second. Visit att.com/hypergig for details.
You probably won't see him because he'll be in his hotel room watching the Hallmark Channel, preparing for, I don't know, summertime or whatever. Summertime love. You can't make this up sometimes. Moving on, as J.G. Hartwell, good to have you here. And the Grandmaster, a.k.a. Gong Show. Nice to see you, my friend. Who else here? Lars Jansson. Very cool Swedish name right there. Lars Jansson. I like it. It should be on the back of an NHL jersey. Let's see, who else is here? Sean, nice to have you here, my friend. Good to have you back. Peppa H, nice to see you. And the awesome Annie Svensson has returned. Carla, looking gorgeous tonight. There's the stunning Pam McSee. And who else do we got here as we are running out of time? Nicola, gorgeous Amy, Vegas. Oh, she'll be partying with us in Vegas, April 22nd to 24th at the Golden Nugget. The stunning, gorgeous Gloria, there she is. And Pedman, good to have you here, my friend. And who else is here? Let's take a quick look here. My eyes start bugging out when I do this. The stunning Tracy Moore. We're probably going to have to call it right there. Super chats are open in the studio. How you doing? Do me a favor, people. Horns up. Time to rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, at KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot, reading Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. Well, we got a great show for you tonight. We're going to go into the forests of Pennsylvania and all around the East Coast. Sean Forker is here talking Bigfoot, Sasquatch, and every cryptid in between. Then, at the top of hour number 3, the Swamp Dweller is going to join us with another spooky story or two from the swamp. Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio tells us a cryptid tale. Shirky Poo's got the news as well. Sean Forker is a Fortean investigator with a primary focus on the research of Sasquatch and Bigfoot. Sean became involved in the paranormal at an early age, heavily influenced by his father and grandfather, with such shows such as Unsolved Mysteries, In Search of, and Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World. At the age of 9, he began heavily reading up on the Bigfoot phenomena and entered into the field at 17. Given his gained experience and judgment, the board of directors for the Alliance of Independent Bigfoot Researchers nominated Sean to serve along with them, where he served for several years, and now he is still running around the forest, looking for Sasquatch, maybe even a little dog man on the side. Sean Forker, it's good to have you back on Spaced Out Radio, my friend. The last time we talked was a pretty down day, but we're going to pump it up tonight.
Oh, yeah, man. Thanks for having me back, Dave. This is great.
I want to ask you, I mean, it's been about a month and a half, almost 2 months now since we lost the legendary Butch Witkowski. You know, how has things changed in your life since the loss of Butch?
Well, it's a little lonelier. You miss the presence of Butch Witkowski. You got to know the man, and he was a giant. And he just, always stayed in contact with you. You just miss that presence. I miss having somebody to bounce ideas off of. Lately, getting really back into the field, into the Bigfoot work, there are some things we've, really gotten into now that I could really use his opinion on. So I really wish he was still here with us to continue on and do some of this research, It's, you just notice the presence. You miss him.
Now, many of our audience would have seen you on our tribute show to Butch Witkowski. We had a large audience for that show. And, but we haven't really ever had you here as a guest, and this was something that I felt we've needed to do for a long time. I've heard your name for so many years now as one of the real credible voices of research on the East Coast. How did you get started in looking for cryptids? In the intro, you learned from your grandpa and your dad in regards to this, but how did you get started?
Well, it's a funny story. Like I said in the bio, I was heavily influenced by In Search of, Unsolved Mysteries, Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World. And I had a habit of talking a lot on road trips, and my dad liked to focus on driving. So on one of the long road trips going to the beach, my dad gave me a book, and the book happened to be Sasquatch, the Apes Among Us by, Canada's own John Green. And I was 9 years old, and that was a voluminous book, and I devoured that book. And you get to a chapter in the book called Eastern Action, and then I realized that there's stories of Bigfoot coming around the areas where I live in Pennsylvania. And it's not just a West Coast, Canada, California, Washington, Oregon phenomena. It's happening in my own backyard.
It's funny you say that because literally, my friend, up until probably a year before I started Spaced Out Radio, I always thought Sasquatch was a West Coast creature. You never heard stories on any of the television shows about Oklahoma or Florida or Pennsylvania, New York. You never heard. It was always California, Oregon, Washington, maybe a little bit of Idaho, and then, of course, British Columbia. I mean, this is a phenomena that I don't think most people understand is really continent-wide.
Oh, yeah. From Maine to Florida to California to Washington up into Alaska, right? And not just in the United States, but around the globe, Russia, the Middle East. There are stories of these giant ape-like creatures that roam the forests. And to the point where you said, this was like a Western phenomena, I think it's because the East Coast has a tendency to lean a little more paranormal than a flesh and blood creature as in the West Coast. So if you're producing TV and you're trying to get people bought in, layering it with more and more paranormal phenomena might be a little bit confusing or, less credible to, someone creating TV.
Oh, very true. Very true. Sean, I want to ask you, because there's always people who are new listening, and they're like, you know what, I'd like to see one of them Bigfoot, or I'd like to, go on one of those adventures looking for Dogman or whatever kind of creatures in the forest. How do you get started in this field if you're a complete rookie?
Well, first thing you do is you do a little research. I suggest reading the books. I would start with something like Sasquatch, the Apes Among Us. It's a big book, but it's a good primer. It gives you the history of the topic. And as you start going through that history, you start learning the credible researchers. You start finding out who they are. Everybody today, Dave, calls themselves a Bigfoot cryptid investigator, and they want to put their fancy logo or their placard out there and, their fancy websites. But you really go and you find people that you can connect with that, not just like-minded, because you don't want to get into groupthink either. You want to challenge yourself a little bit, but find somebody that's willing to take you out and learn and teach you about the subject. And I was blessed by being able to find that when I was relatively young. I met Eric Altman in Pennsylvania. He was my mentor. And he was able to, foster that, and he is a really good dude. Absolutely.
Yes,
and he was able to help craft me and guide me along the way. And of course, along the way, I've gathered my own information and came up with my own thoughts and theories and tested them out. But, it's always looking for good resources. And I can't stress that enough. You don't have to look to me to be your resource, but there are a lot of great researchers out there. I like to stay in the background and just do the research, Dave. I don't like to get out there and create a fuss and be the guy that goes to every conference. And not that there's anything wrong with that, because this field does need good spokespeople to keep it credible. But there are some really good people out there doing some really good work, and I can connect people with those. So if they want to know somebody, find me. I'll get you with somebody who knows what they're doing where you live.
Well, you know what's funny is, I got a funny Eric Altman story. When Butch Witkowski had his heart attack, I had Eric fill in a couple of times on Strange Days. And the second show he did with us, there was some troll in my chat room who was just beating him up. And I finally had enough and got rid of the troll. And he was so humble. He's like, maybe I shouldn't come back if there's people in your chat room who aren't liking me. And I said, you know what, Eric? I said, we produced one hell of a good radio show. We've done it a couple of times. And I said, anytime you want to come on this show, I'm the one who makes the choice, not the audience. And you can come back on. But just humble as can be, you're very lucky to learn from somebody of that stature, Sean.
Oh, yeah, incredible. And that's why I use the term blessed, because there's no other term for it. I don't know if I came along into the field at a good time, but I was fortunate, not just Eric, other investigators, some researchers that don't get a lot of the main public attention. Brian and Terry Seach are good people. People I learned a lot from in my time in the field in Pennsylvania. Tom Ferentz, Tom Long. I mean, I could go with a laundry list of people that a lot of people haven't heard of that spent a lot of time in the woods of Pennsylvania where I've honed my craft, and they taught me a lot. And even today, you're always a student. And Eric would say the same thing. You're always a student of the research. You're always learning. And as you go through this, your own opinions on certain facets of this subject will change. And that's completely okay, because so far nobody's proven anything in this mystery. I mean, we all think, that, the Patterson-Gimlin film may be the best piece of evidence, or the Freeman film, or people have that one thing they latch onto. But there's a reality here. It's not scientifically proven yet.
I got to ask you, if you had the smoking gun film, the Patterson-Gimlin, better camera quality, 2022 camera quality and technology, would you release it publicly?
No, absolutely not. I don't think video would satisfy anybody. I think, and CGI is good, but let me tell you, it's still not that great where I think you could pull the wool over everybody. I mean, getting into the world of deep fakes and what have you, it's getting better. But it's still not to that point where I think you could replicate something like a Bigfoot that would be, so lifelike it could fool people. But I wouldn't want the hassle of trying to validate and justify what I filmed. I wouldn't want to have to go through. I mean, look what we do to Bigfoot witnesses. They come out and they share their sightings, and if they don't fit a certain criteria of what you're looking for, those folks get crucified. Imagine having video and wanting to do that. I'd show it to my friends. I'd keep it, but I don't think I'd release it publicly.
See, I agree with you. I would never, ever release it if I got it. And, a lot of people are offended. Like, Dave, why would you not release it if you had the smoking gun? Well, I can tell you. I look at what happened to Bob Gimlin and Roger Patterson, where their families have been tortured for half a century. Their grandchildren, who have nothing to do with it, tortured for their grandfather seeing a Bigfoot. I mean, I could never imagine what that would be like, and I don't ever want to.
No, a lot of risk involved with, putting that. And like you said, your families, you don't want to, ever, put anybody at risk. And sometimes there are people that are very, unhinged on these topics, and they will go to great lengths to, make your life miserable. Back in the day, there was a man named John Eric Beckyard. And if he did not agree with you, and he's passed away, and I don't feel bad about that because he was a miserable person, he would torture you. He would call you at all hours of the day. He would call your work. He would do whatever he could to just drive you up the wall because he could, and he had nothing better to do. And if you didn't agree with his philosophies and his thought, and you had a big mouth like I do sometimes, he targeted you. And he, if you know a lot of people that have been in this field a long time, Dave, you ask him about John Eric Beckyard, and I'm sure you'd get a very similar story from a lot of people. He was not known to be very tactful or considerate to fellow researchers. And when you say unhinged, he was an unhinged person. Well, and they exist in this field.
That brings up a very good point. Why do people, whether it's Sasquatch, Dogman, UFOs, aliens, ghosts, why do people get so upset and pissed off in this field, Sean? I mean, it is incredible. I know people who have had death threats because of their research. I know people who have been harassed, who have had horrid accusations made about them. I mean, it's really the underbelly of the entire phenomena. 99% of the people are not like that, but there are some real sickos out there who are causing a lot of havoc within these wonderful communities. Why do you think this is going on?
Well, I think there's an element of fanaticism in these. They get so militant in what they believe, and they can't see anything through their own delusion or their own vision, that anything that challenges that and has a credible threat to them, is exactly that, a credible threat. And, people react differently to those things. Some people have a violent reaction and tendency, and like I said, they become fanatical about what they believe, and they will fight tooth and nail for it. And the reality is, there's nothing in any of these fields, in my opinion, that's worth that kind of attention and energy. There's really not. This, for me, and I understand for some people this is an occupation, this research for me is still fun. I have a real job. My life's not dedicated. I don't earn my living from this. My life's dedicated to many other things. So to me, this is just a hobby. I don't think I could ever dedicate myself to something like that where I'm ready to create havoc or ruin somebody else's life, but there are people out there who do. Maybe they need to take a break and pick up bowling or something else, but I wish I had a reason for it besides just blatant fanaticism.
Yeah, and I can see that, and I can appreciate that, but I mean, when you don't even know what the creature is, all we know is what we've seen.
Yeah.
We have no body. We have no real true DNA. I mean, sure, there's specks of DNA out there, hair samples, little particles from footprints or scat or whatever, but we have no femurs or elbows or arms or torsos or rib cages, eyeballs, skull. We got none of it. None. And the fact that we can't find any is baffling to me, first and foremost, but it also opens up the door to a lot of other possibilities. And this is where I get into my famous line of saying, how much science is there when we're more so conducting opinion in the field, and we see guys going out there, this is a monkey, this is a great ape, this is Gigantopithecus, this is Wally the walrus, Woody Woodpecker, Chilly Willy the penguin, whatever cartoon you want to get to. I mean, but that's the field.
Yeah. And there's a lot of truth in what you speak there, and it's one of the problems I've had with a long time. We spend so much, and don't get me wrong, I'm a flesh and blood guy. Right? That's what I believe. That doesn't mean I'm right. I'm the first one to admit that I could be wrong. We could wake up tomorrow, somebody could discover that these creatures have properties that other animals don't have, or, they might be something completely different. And if I was wrong, I'm okay with that. And I think when you start getting into the mindset where you have these, you have people trying to come up with a, taxonomy and scientific name for these creatures. Like, well, let's prove they exist first before we start wanting to name the things. Like, there's so much we don't understand. We have no bones, Dave, like you said. We have no, real real proof, real evidence to prove it exists besides some plaster casts, some hair that we can't identify. And maybe there are bones out there. I've heard stories through the years that there are bones that have been collected, but where are they? And is there a reason those bones aren't made public and they're not out there? There's some other things to think about in proving the existence of a species that shouldn't exist in a populated country like North America. That could disrupt a lot of industry. There's a lot to go into that.
Oh, yeah. I was on a podcast earlier today, and I was asked that question. A lot of people don't realize the magnitude of finding a new creature or an endangered species. They shut down that area. The government will come in, not because they're there to hunt down the creature, but because they need to learn. They need to learn its habitat, what it's eating, what it's feeding off of. Is it migratory? Where is it living? Where is it doing its business? Where is it procreating? And that takes years in that area without logging, without fishing, without hunting, without camping, without hiking, without mining. That's a lot of money for a community or a business to lose, millions upon millions of dollars.
And look at the maps where these creatures are sighted. They're all across the country. And if you went into some of the less populated areas of the country, like through parts of the Midwest, into Montana, Utah, those areas, where there's not a lot of population, your chances of probably running into these creatures may be a little greater. The reason there aren't a lot of sightings out there is because nobody lives there. Or if those that do live there may already accept it, so it may not be that big of a deal. But if you increase that range and you start thinking about that scope and that magnitude of impact, now all of a sudden you might be affecting the timber industry, the paper industry, the fracking industry, right? There's a lot of billions of dollars at stake here if something like this is proven to be existent. And that is very disruptive to an economy, and not to say anything about any kind of religious or scientific implications. How does that change the paradigm? For years, we have been told we are the intelligent, dominant species on this planet, and something like this may not be as intelligent, sure, by brute force, could tear us apart with no problem.
Sean Forker is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We got 3 minutes, Sean, before we got to go to break at the bottom of the hour. For you, as you search for this creature, you say you're a flesh and blood guy, but you're open to all options because the truth is still out there. What are you looking for? How do you go about setting your scope on what you're searching for?
A lot of what
Gorgeous gaming, stunning streams, unbelievable bandwidth. Welcome to another Lifestyles of Gagillionaires. Meet the AT&T Fiber customers winning at life with hyper-gig speeds. Say hello to the Walkers, a family of not one but 4 Gagillionaires, each living up their Gagillionaire life at ludicrous internet speed. First up, Anna Walker. She dominates streaming like the matriarch she is. No show ever goes unwatched under her watch.
Next episode.
Next up, Peter Walker. There's no stopping this dad bod from showing up to his virtual workout sessions.
Let's go leg day.
And finally, the Walker twins. They may look alike but couldn't internet more differently. Harry dominates his fellow online gamers while Heather group video chats with friends.
Ooh, nice background filter, Jess.
Live like a Gagillionaire. Get internet that upgrades everything. AT&T Fiber, now with speeds up to 5 gigs.
Limited availability in select areas. Speeds not guaranteed. Single device wired speed. Max 4.7 gig per second. Visit att.com/hypergig for details.
Hi, I'm Flo from Progressive. Being a baseball fanatic like me can be stressful. It's not all sports points and touchdowns. So Progressive is going to help you take your mind off your team for a moment. Instead of thinking about how they missed that goal point score, think about the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, letting you choose coverage options based on your budget. Unlike your team that missed the end zone net area. Well, anyway, hope this distraction about Progressive's Name Your Price tool was helpful. It sure kept me from thinking about all those penalty balls. Yay, sports!
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
I do date revolves around, fresh eyewitness testimony. And then going to deploy ourselves in areas where there is a history of significant Bigfoot activity, and then just continuing to investigate and, probe into those areas, spend time in the woods. And I'm not a big technology advocate. I don't think technology helps you in the search for this entity, this creature. I think that the human senses are far more reliable than the technology. Yeah, we could take a picture, but what does that mean in the end? Nothing really. A lot of times that technology distracts us and prevents us from being in tune with the things around us. And that limits us more than it helps us. So I'm not a big technology guy. I think that, the human senses are the way to go. And, you just collect what you can and notate everything.
Well, you know what? Let's see how it goes, as we move on here, because I think the open-mindedness is where we need to be. We don't need any more closed-door research. And in the end, I don't think a lot of the researchers out there understand how much that actually harms the ability to focus on a true investigation.
No, I agree with you 100%. The open mind and not closing yourself off to new ideas is incredibly helpful. And I think because of that, we are starting to find some new things in this research.
What do we need to find? Do we need a body?
Well, I think that's the only thing that would satisfy science and skeptics is a body. At the end of the day, how we get it, that's maybe the larger, conundrum. Do we take one or do we hope to find one that's already deceased?
Oh, what would you do? We got about 45 seconds. What would you do if you came across a body?
I'd take the biggest chunk of it I could and get the heck out of the woods and find a scientist that I trust and, start getting to work.
How would you go about finding that scientist? Because the only one who really believes it exists is Jeffrey Meldrum.
I would probably reach out to Dr. Meldrum. I've met him several times. He's a very nice, knowledgeable guy, very science-minded. But I would probably go to Dr. Todd Disotell first, the man who's been doing a lot of the DNA research. Hey, I have this chunk of Bigfoot. I'd like you to analyze this, and let's get some answers. And now let's have some of your more skeptical friends look at this too, so we can get people outside the Bigfoot community on track, looking and seeing what we're bringing in now. This is different. This is something that you can now tangibly see and touch. Let's get to work.
You got that right. Sean Forker, Fortean researcher out of the state of Pennsylvania and on the East Coast looking for Sasquatch. When we come back, we're going to hear about maybe a couple of Sean's favorite close encounters and reports that he's dealt with over the years. Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. All right, we're clear. I'm just going to run upstairs. I'll be right back, okay? Sorry about that, Sean.
Oh, no problem, my friend. No problem at all.
Little guy's all passed out. We went for a daddy-son dinner tonight. Went and got some.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Went and got some chicken wings and some, always full iced tea glasses. Oh yeah.
My research partner James Baker. Well, every time we go, the waitress calls them hot pipes because he has like 16 iced teas during dinner. Like he just loves his iced tea, unsweetened with one equal.
Oh, that's terrible. How does anybody even like that? Doesn't even rate his iced tea.
How about it? I like mine with some flavor.
Yeah, no kidding.
If I can't taste sugar crystals, I don't want it.
You got that right. I'm pounding one back right now. If it isn't coating my teeth by the end of the night, I know it's a bad iced tea.
I had one of my sons out with me tonight too, visiting some friends. I have 3 kids, and they've survived Dad's nuttiness and all this. And my middle son, Gabe, likes to get out in the field with me.
Oh,
my
cool.
youngest, I think, is 11. He's starting to really, I think, take an interest in my daughter's in her first year of college. So everything else is far more important than what Dad's doing right now. So
yeah, I know that feeling. Yeah, my little guy who's 8, he loves coming out. He loves coming out. We'll throw the side-by-side on the trailer, and I'll be like, come on, bud, we're going for a ride. We're going to find Bigfoot today. And he's just like right in there, like a dirty sock being thrown into the laundry hamper. He's just like pumped right up. Let's do this thing, man. And that's why I can't wait for the snow to melt, so that way we could get back out there and get some normalcy back.
how about it? It's good bonding time too. I always enjoyed my time out in the woods with my dad and everybody. We had a Father's Day picnic every year where we would have it out in a state park, and one of the features of the picnic was hikes, and I used to love that time. I still love being in the woods. If I didn't have to work for a living, I'd be spending my time in the woods as much as possible.
Oh, dude, you called the shot right there. You called the shot right there.
Being in Pennsylvania, I'm just surrounded by woods just about everywhere. And I live in central Pennsylvania. People think Pennsylvania, they think Philadelphia or Pittsburgh. I'm in that vast everywhere else in between, that's non-populated with trees, and I just love it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's what I love about where I live, man. Like in 5 minutes, I could be out in dense forest.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, same.
All right,
same here. I love it.
We got 20 seconds here. Thank you to Cherry Pepsi Mike for kicking off the Super Chat tonight. The Super Chat is a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis, so thank you so much. And we're going to continue on here right now. Get your horns up. Let's rock. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is underway. What's going on, everybody? My name is Dave Scott. Good to have you with us. Want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do us the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Fortean researcher Sean Forker is with us. He's one of the guys who's picking up the slack now that Butch Witkowski has moved on to all the answers, and hopefully he's got them by now. He's probably having a beer and a cigarette with a dogman or a bipedal canine somewhere. And Sean, I'm pretty sure you would agree with that.
Absolutely. And a kielbasa.
Oh, yeah. Hey, he's Polish, I'm Ukrainian. That's why we got along so well. So I want to ask you, Sean, out of all the years that you've been doing this, you must have a couple of stories that have really stuck with you that you could share with us.
Oh, absolutely. 2012 was a really busy year for me in terms of Bigfoot research. And I say 2012 because I had my own encounter in 2012, but the area I had my own encounter had activity prior to that, which is why it's important that we talk about those before we ever get into mine. Clearfield County, Pennsylvania is a very active part of PA. A lot of times you think of Pennsylvania and you think cryptozoology, you think the Chestnut Ridge. There's a lot more to Pennsylvania than just the Ridge. The Ridge gets a lot of popularity because of its, all the stories and history and legend that comes from that area. Clearfield County has had hundreds of Bigfoot sightings over the years, which is why I had picked that as a target area in 2010, 2011 to, really focus and investigate. New Year's Eve, 2012, a husband and wife driving home have your typical roadside crossing, and they notate a white coloration on the bottom of the feet of this creature. Creature jumps the guardrail, disappears. Hour later, driving down the same highway, Route 322, another couple see a creature run across the road. Notates this white soles of the bottom of the feet. These couple did not know each other. I sat down with them independently with a couple other researchers. They never met each other in their life, coming from different areas, but on the same road, on the same night, within an hour of each other, literally see the same creature.
No kidding.
How does that happen? If something, how does that happen? Like, either you have somebody out there really doing a good hoax, but the height doesn't, corroborate a hoax. We used my best friend, my brother Ray, as the stand-in for what these folks had seen, and it was 2 feet taller than Ray, and Ray is 6'4". So you can use him as a measuring stick for how tall this creature is. Ray's a big guy, about 350. This creature was bigger than him, and these folks saw this thing, like I said, independently of each other, on the same road, within the same, within an hour. So to me, that was like, we need to spend some more time out here. Ray and I would go back and forth, about an hour and a half from where I live. We would go out once or twice a week out that way, investigate, saw some really large deer out there, and, just really enjoyed that area. We became friends with the people that owned a restaurant at the top of the, Rockton Mountain out there, called Over the Top of the Mountain. It's the name of the bar. And as we're there, we put on a couple what you would call town hall meetings. They were pretty well attended, and we had some good feedback, decent sighting reports taken from them. One was from a man named Ernie, who was out on a cabin on the mountain, and he was playing his guitar in the cabin. And as he looks over, he sees this giant creature, this giant head with these big eyes looking through the window, watching him as he's playing his guitar. Right? So stories like that really, really compel me to, keep going to this area. As I'm doing an investigation in this area, I get a phone call from an elderly lady who lives out not far from there. It's a different county, but it's not far from, where we're doing this research. And we'll call her Mrs. W, because I've never publicly released the information. And she invited, my research partner Ernie Delp and I at the time to go out and meet with them. And so we met them at Over the Top of the Mountain, interviewed her, and she was an older lady, a retired nurse. Her husband was a retired school teacher from New York City. Her husband had lost his vision. He had become blind. And, we're sitting there talking to Mrs. W, and she's telling us about, how she would bake pies and she'd put them in the window. And when she would come back to get them, they'd be gone. She would have, rocks pelted at them occasionally. But one morning, her dog was really agitated and needed to go outside. She assumed for the bathroom. It had just finished raining. It's about 3 o'clock in the morning. She takes her dog outside. The dog runs to the end of the deck and just freezes. Well, she's like, well, the dog really had to go out, and all of a sudden he stops. What's going on? And as she looks down, she gets towards the end of the deck. She sees under this light a Bigfoot going through her dumpster, rooting through the garbage, and it had the lid open with its arm. She saw the arm, and she said the hair that hung off its arm reminded her more of Spanish moss. And she just stood there and looked at it for a moment, it went off and did its thing. And then she decided she needed to tell somebody about this. Well, as we talked to her, we also, notate other things. Her husband, I don't think at first believed her with these stories, but he's blind. So you take away one of those senses, and what happens? Your other senses tend to be amplified. He starts hearing things that he can't explain. Different sounds, different whoops. So Ernie and I are talking and like, you know what? We need to go out and spend some time with these people. We go out, spend some time. We go see this window that she puts this pie on, or her baked goods, whatever it is. It just happens to disappear whenever she puts something up there. And that window is a good 10, 11 feet off the ground. Something big has to be able to get up and take that from that window. One night, her daughter was coming to visit, and one of these creatures jumped over the hood of her car, grazed the hood of her car. She zooms up the road to her parents' house, and she doesn't, she runs inside. She doesn't get back in her car. She doesn't go down this road again. She's really frightened. Of course, there's no real evidence to, corroborate what she's saying, but now you have 3 people in this family that have had an encounter with something. It keeps coming back around their home. They have, the husband who can't see can also hear these strange things happening. We spent a lot of time out there. This is old growth forest, Dave. Trees so big you can't put your arms around them. That's how big these trees are. 100-year-old trees. And the more and more I talk to people, like, those are old growth forests, not a hell of a lot of, visitation aside a couple times a year. It's perfect habitat for something like that to live in and survive. And probably has been for a long time. And now that people are starting to encroach more into some of these wilderness areas, it makes sense that it's interacting. Habituation is a dirty word in Bigfoot research, right? The continual revisitation of a creature to somebody's home, because a lot of times it's, followed by claims of Bigfoot knocking on your door and asking for garlic, or you're able to communicate with these things unless you ask a researcher to come out to your house, then you can't prove anything. But you have these interpersonal connections with these things, right? At no point did these folks ever say they tried to habituate this thing or keep it around. It just kept coming back. They didn't do anything to solicit it. It just kept coming back. So that was really the, focal point for me to really go out there and understand and to try to find out what was going on. All the time we spent out there, we heard some sounds, but we never saw anything. I never saw anything. I can't say that for sure with Ernie because, he's not here to speak for himself. I never saw anything there.
The idea that this creature was almost stalking these people, maybe not in a violent way, but in a way where they were getting very up close and personal, almost friendly, much like a bear that's been around too many humans. Was that cause for concern?
Yeah, she was concerned about it because she didn't know. She didn't want to keep encouraging whatever it was that was visiting, but she didn't want to bring it any harm. I think to the point they were agnostic about Bigfoot before, they had sought us out. Until she had the sighting, she wasn't sure what was going on. She thought maybe she was having, a bear or something, getting out there and getting at their stuff. But for me, even if she didn't have that sighting, the husband being able to have these, hearing these things he can't explain, that was a little bit more telling to me. And, he's a very calm, rational guy. Like, a lot didn't rattle him, and those made him uncomfortable. So, how do you explain that? Yeah, there's an absence of evidence, right? Also what we found on the property were these giant gloppy pancake-looking craps that we would find just on the property. What else leaves those out there? It wasn't bear scat that, was leaving that out there.
Okay, so the idea that this creature was in the area, do you think it was just kind of migrating through?
I think perhaps it was something that just lived in those woods and has been there for a long time. These folks, after they moved out there, I think were one of the few people that lived in this area year-round after that. It's more of a kind of resort-type area where people just visit in the summers. Into the early fall. They don't stay out there year round. These folks lived out there year round. And as you get out there and you acclimate to the environment, perhaps this thing's trying to who are you, why are you here, nobody else is here to this time, what are you doing here? I think it's curiosity is what brought it in. And then, hey, guess what, here's a food source. These people are leaving trash out here. Butch always used to say, Bigfoot's got to have trash.
Gorgeous gaming, stunning streams, unbelievable bandwidth. Welcome to another Lifestyles of Gagillionaires. Meet the AT&T Fiber customers winning at life with hyper gig speeds. Say hello to the Walkers, a family of not one but 4 Gagillionaires, each living up their Gagillionaire life at ludicrous internet speed. First up, Anna Walker. She dominates streaming like the matriarch she is. No show ever goes unwatched under her watch.
Next episode.
Next up, Peter Walker. There's no stopping this dad bod from showing up to his virtual workout sessions.
Let's go leg day.
And finally, the Walker twins. They may look alike but couldn't internet more differently. Harry dominates his fellow online gamers while Heather group video chats with friends.
Ooh, nice background filter, Jess.
Live like a Gagillionaire. Get internet that upgrades everything. AT&T Fiber, now with speeds up to 5 gigs.
Limited availability in select areas. Speeds not guaranteed. Single device wired speed. Max 4.7 gig per second. Visit att.com/hypergig for details.
Trash. It's got to do something with all this stuff. You find these things in strange places. Like it's got to, when you leave this stuff out, you're creating, even for bears, you're just creating a situation where you're just asking for something wild to come back. Think about that, Dave. Your whole life is predicated on the fact that you have access to food and shelter. Well, the shelter can be there in many places we may not see, but food may be a little scarce. And if you can get a meal and not expand the energy to get it, why would you not take that opportunity? And that's something that I think Bigfoot could potentially do that other large animals do to save and conserve energy. And you're providing them with an all-you-can-eat buffet.
Well, and that's almost the same attitude as a bear has. Bears are very lazy hunters. They don't want to go hunt. They don't want to go kill. It takes energy to do that, a lot of energy. And if they can be in a civilized area or a rural area where there's garbage cans and people throwing food out into the backwoods because they don't want it anymore or whatever, I mean, hey, why not take the free meal? It's easy.
Absolutely. And you expend less energy doing it. So why would you not? So I think when, your question, I don't think it was malicious in any intent. I think it just got comfortable with the fact these folks were here. I don't consider it a habituation situation because they weren't actively engaging in keeping it or trying to communicate or making these grandiose claims about it. They were just these elderly couple that had a nuisance animal they had a lot of questions about. And it just happened to be we fit the profile of someone they wanted to talk to about it. Went out and did the investigation. Friends of mine, Jeff and Julie Anderson, still do a lot of research out that way, stay in touch with them. Took them out firewood, made sure they were okay. And the activity has seemingly kind of gone down, but I think that's also when you start adding new people into the element, maybe you're scaring it off because now all of a sudden this creature that was used to, just a couple or, a handful of people, now you've got more people coming out there disrupting your everyday routine, and you may just drive it off.
Right. But this creature, though, really didn't seem to be acting in any sort of aggressive behavior. Kind of like, yeah, I see you there, but I'm just going to go do my thing and scrounge around. I'm a little hungry. Maybe there's half a burger or a bone from a steak in here somewhere.
Yeah, and you know, there are reports from all over, Dave, of Bigfoot being these violent, you know, creatures. I don't buy that. I think if that was the case, there'd be a lot more injured folk out there reporting Bigfoot sightings. Opportunistic, maybe. Are they taking advantage of the situations they're in? Absolutely. Violent, I don't think so. The Mr. and Mrs. W never at any point indicated that they felt anything besides just uncomfortable. Never felt threatened, just uncomfortable. And it was that uncomfortable feeling that caused the fear, not anything generated by this creature in an intimidation sense.
That leads me to question, do you think Sasquatch is a curious creature or one that's minding its own business but may just encroach on areas close to humans?
I think it's a very curious creature, and a lot of sighting reports indicate that. You know, you mentioned stalking. That behavior, you know, we think stalking as in a very negative sense because it's fear-oriented, right? I think it's following us to see what we're doing. It's just curious about us, as some of us are about it. You know, what are these naked monkeys doing walking through my woods? You know, think about that. They probably have just as many questions about us as we do them. We just might be able to articulate it a little better. But at the end of the day, when you see a lot of these reports, aside from your roadside sightings, a lot of what we may be considering intimidation technique may not be intimidation. It may be they're testing us to see how we're going to react to their presence. And that's something to think about. Like a lot of these bluff charges that you hear, rock throwing, which I've experienced the rock throwing. These things, they seem dangerous, but let me tell you, if the rocks were really meant to hit you and hurt you, they would do so. I think they're meant to scare you off or to test you and see, how much can you handle before you decide to tuck tail and run.
Well, and that's a big one right there, is, the curiosity of this creature trying to figure out, what is going on, especially when it's, there's humans around every single day in their areas, whether it's loggers, which I could assume they would be kind of pissed off at, whether it's campers or whether it's hunters, which I could see the fear, because I really do believe that Sasquatch has a very sharp nose for the smell of gunpowder. Whether it's children playing hide and seek or a game of tag in the trees. I mean, I can see where the curiosity comes in with this creature because,
absolutely.
I mean, when you're battling apex predators for food and living area and everything, seeing these little things that are hairless that kind of look like you, yet they're smaller than you, of course it would attract. It's like, if you're a parent, okay, I think all of us as parents love to see happy children. And when you drive by a park, or you take your child to the park or the water park or somewhere like that, and the children are screaming and laughing and playing and running around and having a good time, it does nothing but build up your own spirit. Could it be something like that? Absolutely.
When we often talk about that curiosity factor, and like you mentioned, the children playing, and I don't think it's inherently a violent or malicious creature, Dave. I think these chance encounters that happen, chance on our end, not chance on their end, like a ninja spying, absolutely. Like it's curious about us and wants to understand us. Now, there are times where perhaps we push too far and go into places we're just not supposed to go. We might be getting a little too close to them, and they want to push us out of those areas. I don't know. All this is, supposition, because we go back to what we said at the beginning. There's no real evidence this thing exists. People are interacting with something, and this something's interacting back.
Why are we not?
Where do we go from there?
But why are we not getting better communication with this thing then?
Well, maybe we just haven't figured out really how to communicate with it.
See,
and once you can break that, you get some, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and you see, and I apologize for cutting you off there. I think it has to do with trust. I have heard stories from about 2 hours south of me at Wells Grays National Park, where annually there was a family there that would go camping the same week in the same spot, and they allegedly had a relationship, and every year at that time met a Sasquatch there. They would bring the Sasquatch peanut butter and jam sandwiches. It's not like they would sit down for a coffee and say, "Hey, how you doing?" It was all part of their own research, and apparently they did this for like 20, 30 years, that this was going on with this exact same creature. I'm not sure if they ever saw other creatures, but you hear other stories of people who are interacting very cordially with this creature. Maybe it's farmers, or maybe it's just people out in the wilderness who go hiking the same part of the same area each time. I think once you get comfortable with the creature gets comfortable with you, how you smell, the vehicle, the sound of the vehicle you drive, if you honk twice each time before you come in to try and scare off animals, or you leave a gifting package, like whether it's tobacco or fruit or whatever. I think this is a creature of pattern in order to communicate with it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a merit there. You talk about the folks that, 20 to 30 years. Sorry, I had a hiccup there. People very skeptical would say, why is there no proof? The fact of the matter is, putting yourself in the position of the experiencers, the people that are having these encounters for 20, 30 years, maybe they don't want to do anything besides tell someone the story. Maybe they're not trying to prove anything. Maybe they're just trying to get someone to understand that they are having these encounters. Like, the more and more I'm in this, the more and more I try to understand why people don't report more. And the fact of the matter is, Bigfoot investigators are 9 times out of 10 inherently mean. And when we're investigating a sighting, one thing we never consider is the emotional state or the effect we have on our actions on the witness. And we can be oftentimes far more intimidating than the subject they're trying to chase, because if it doesn't fit our narrative, we don't like it. And we find every reason to disprove it instead of to believe it. Habituation has had a long history in Bigfoot research, but over time, because some folks have been very, over the top with the claims they made with it, has put that in the position where people don't want to believe in it so much. I have some great friends out here in Pennsylvania, Jamie and Jenny King, and they research much differently than anybody I know, and they do the gifting, and they have results.
Right.
And I have no reason not to believe them, because I know them, I know their hearts.
And Sean, I'm going to get you to hold on right there. We'll
Sure
talk
thing.
about that. Gifting, getting to know Sasquatch. Are they into Cosmo, or are they into Sports Illustrated? We'll find out next. Sean Forker, and we'll ask your questions from the chat rooms as well. Spaced Out Radio continues with hour number 2 next. That last half hour ended. It caught up on me. Didn't it?
Quick, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Went fast.
Very fast. This is a great show so far, man.
Sorry, it's 1 o'clock my time, so sometimes my thought patterns drift off around this time, because I'm usually sawing logs,
Well, I hear you.
There's just so much to this, man. There really is. And to your point, the curiosity factor,
Yeah.
it's spot on.
Hey, I'm just going to go check on my son again. I'll be right back, okay?
Sure thing, Dave.
Sorry about that. My dog decided he had to go outside for a little dog time.
That's no problemo, my friend.
All right. Who came in here while I was gone? Brazelhoff, how you doing? Gorgeous D. Swagger. Good to see you. Bob Berkins, thanks for coming on in. Scott Barnett. Forker, what are you up to?
About 5'6".
All right, we are caught up there. We got a good crowd tonight, man. Good crowd. Thank you, everybody who's tuned on in. Gorgeous Lucy Bell is returning to us right there. TMI, thank you for coming on in. Yes, TMI, it is a swap of shows on Monday. The gorgeous Sonia's News. Diesel Girl. Welcome, you lovely Fraser Valleyite. Al Menial, thanks for coming on in. Want to say a big thank you to Cherry Pepsi Mike for the Super Chat tonight. The Super Chat is a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis, so thank you so much. A big thank you to all the veterans out there who are tuning in right now. We really love you and appreciate you, and you always have a safe home in our chat room. And, of course, all our regulars who are here nightly, much love to each and every one of you. If you're brand new, do us a favor, hit that subscribe button, ring that bell. We are literally here 7 days a week for your listening entertainment. Yeah, we don't stop here. We just keep going. We're kind of stupid that way. So we just, we're like the Energizer Bunnies. We go and go and go. Here we go.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. And on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Here we go, kicking off hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hi to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Nubble. Nubble is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight with Sean Forker. He is a Fortean researcher out of the beautiful state of Pennsylvania, searching for Sasquatch and what the legend is all about. And Sean, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Dave. I've been having a blast.
Me too, my friend. Me too. All right, before we get to questions from the audience, right before the break, we were talking about the curiosity of Sasquatch. And I think this is a very, very undermined attitude that we have as researchers, not looking into this creature's curiosity. We're always looking for footprints. We're always looking for, any type of structure, whether it's big crosses in the forest or some sort of teepee-like, lean-to-like structures. What if we allow the creature just to come to us? Would that improve our chances of finding out more about it? If, say for 3, 4, 5 weeks in a row or more, we go to the same spot at the same time in the same vehicle wearing the same clothes, do you think that might help?
I think there's merit in that thought process. The more you become acclimated to the environment, the more comfortable the environment becomes with you, right? And I had mentioned Jamie and Jenny King before we took a break. I'm learning a lot from them. Sometimes a lot of it is just the energy you're projecting, too. It's grounding yourself and, putting out, positive intent. And I know it seems maybe a little esoteric for folks, but there's power in positivity, right? So as cliche as it may be a part of the key to this puzzle. What you're putting out and projecting, that feeling could be part of what's keeping these things away or allowing them to come to you, and an open-mindedness. I don't know. There's so many questions. I spent so much time as a flesh and blood researcher, Dave, that, the new ideas that come to me, am I skeptical? Absolutely. But do I throw the baby out with the bathwater? No, I think they need to be explored, and we need to be curious about it. We could use that word ad nauseum.
Gorgeous gaming, stunning streams, unbelievable bandwidth. It's another Lifestyles of Gagillionaires. Meet the AT&T Fiber customers winning at life with hyper gig speeds. Meet Gagillionaire Terry. While his love of streaming horror movies has him constantly on the edge of his seat, his internet bill won't give him a scare.
Oh, don't go in there. I'm telling you.
Because since Terry upgraded to AT&T Fiber with hyper gig speeds, he doesn't worry about data caps or equipment fees.
Come on, man. The door's open for a reason.
And best yet, he also doesn't stress about a price increase at 12 months, because with the amazing Gagillionaire lifestyle comes an exquisite sense of tranquility. Most of the time. Live like a Gagillionaire. Get straightforward pricing with AT&T Fiber. Internet that upgrades everything. No data caps, no equipment fees, and no price increase at 12 months.
Limited availability in select areas. Visit att.com/hypergig for details.
When so much of life is about the big moments, it's the details in the all-new 2022 Grand Wagoneer that makes the small moments truly special. Take joy in American premium design with available walnut trims and technology, like the available 23-speaker Macintosh reference entertainment system, and with seating for up to 8. No detail is overlooked, because it's the details that make every journey grand. The Grand Wagoneer, Grand Adventures Return. Wagoneer is a registered trademark of FCA US LLC.
And then curiosity. And I think we have to keep that spirit alive, even with gifting. I've heard from so many folks that they've left these gifts for these creatures, and they've been left something in return. Has it happened to me? No, but I also haven't been out there doing it.
One of the things that I'm very pro gifting site. I just think it's a very natural and curious thing to do, but I am very anti gifting food.
No, pardon me.
I think there's a real danger. A lot of people are gifting food, whether it's juice boxes or apples or bananas or potato chips or whatever it may be. And the problem that I have with that is once you start allowing a wild creature to have a natural food source, once you stop, that creature becomes a hell of a lot more aggressive. It expects and demands the food that you are leaving for him, because you've become part of its food source, part of its diet. And I'm assuming that you would think the same way regarding gifting sites, or do you believe in using them at all?
I think, you make a really good point, and it's not something I had considered until you just said it about with the food. Also look at, they have a very natural diet, unless they are subsiding on our trash, right? They have a very natural diet of what's ever around them and what they can eat. As we start introducing things from our diet into them, a lot of processed foods could really be messing with them. There are some additives that we put in food that could be very dangerous to them. You can't always feed your dogs, what you eat. So we could be causing more harm than we actually realize. And I know that may be a stretch for some folks out there, and that's okay, but it's a possibility you got to think about. In that gifting of food, we could be causing more harm than we could good. I do think there is some merit in gifting. I think we just have to spend a little bit more time detailing the situation. Are we collecting data and cataloging it over a period of time so we could kind of build a case, build a study that says, hey, for X amount of time, I have left this has been left back to me in return. It couldn't be from somebody else. we have to eliminate some things, right? Could it be another person? Could it, and through that process of elimination and study, you could come up with some really interesting results. So I think it's an idea that has a lot of merit and something more people should probably explore.
Let's get to a question from Sovereign here, who would like to know, who are the known Sasquatch researchers of the 2005 era? This was 10 years before I caught the Sasquatch bug in 2015.
Well, some of the names that you hear now were very prevalent back then, too. Cliff Barrickman, James Fay, Bobo, Matt Moneymaker was around back then. Bart Catino's a guy who, if you're a Bigfoot researcher, you know who he is. If you're outside the realm of Bigfoot, you may not know who he is. John Pickering is another guy. Rick Knoll. Bob Chance from Maryland. Eric Altman in Pennsylvania. Daniel Perez, who wrote the Bigfoot Times newsletter that's been out forever. In 2005, you still had John Green around. Peter Burns still around. Two of the horsemen. Bob Gimlin was just coming back into the scene in that time because Bob Gimlin had stepped away for a long time. His life became, very difficult with the Patterson-Gimlin film, so he stepped away and didn't get involved until later on. Tom Yamarone, the list could go on and on, Dave. There are a lot of individuals out there in 2005. Even I started popping up onto the scene at that point. Not that I'm tooting my own horn, but in 2005, I was getting out there and, really rubbing elbows and getting to know these folks and raising a little hell.
Well, it had to be a fun time. How do you raise hell in the forest? No, I'm just teasing. I got to ask you, let's get into the technological side of everything here, okay? Because the highlight over the last couple of years with Sasquatch investigation is, we got to get drones in the sky. We got to get drones up there. We can see more territory. We could maybe find their caves, find some sort of ID, maybe catch one of these creatures walking in a direction. Technology really does not have a real grasp on the cryptid research of things. Look how many trail cameras are out there. There are literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of trail cams right now set up around North America in Sasquatch areas, and we do not have a thing on these. Nothing.
Or do we? And we just don't know. I was talking to Cliff Barrickman about this a year ago at dinner, a couple years ago at dinner now, and we were talking about game cams, and he has seen some photographs that won't ever see the light of public because the people don't want them out. So the answer is perhaps there are things out there that we just haven't seen because people don't want us to see them. And, technology isn't limitless. It's limited, and it's just now starting to get good where we can use it for a lot more applications. We can use it a lot more practically for Bigfoot research.
Okay, what's the next step? We've tried thermal, we've tried night vision, we've tried trail cams. Drones are the next portion of this. Where do we go from here?
Well, drones still make noise, right? And I think it was called Project Falcon, and Dr. Jeff Meldrum was a part of it, where they were trying to use blimp to go around the forests and use different types of cameras to, collect photographic video evidence. And I think there was some merit there. Thermal has had some interesting hits. Mike Green in North Carolina, Stacy Brown, Florida, I believe, and Bart Catino, three gentlemen, that have had luck, and their thermal images are out there. You can see them. And they can't be explained within the proportional ratio of a human. The size, the limb, they just can't be explained as a person. And I know the Stacy Brown one, there's some folks out there that say it was a hoax, but it hasn't been proven to be a hoax. And that's telling, because when we start getting into evidence, Dave, everybody's like, well, it's a hoax, and so and so. There's never been a definitive proof that the Patterson-Gimlin film's a hoax. Nobody's been able to prove it's a hoax. It's always, well, the onus is to prove it's real. No, it's to prove it's fake, and nobody's been able to do that. And it's just like some of these, trail cam or these thermal images. You have to prove that what you're seeing through that lens and the heat proportions, the limb ratio, like you have to prove that's not a Bigfoot, because you're already eliminating human just by mathematics.
Well, that brings up an interesting topic to switch to. Do we really want to solve this issue? That brings up another. Sorry about that. That brings up another issue regarding this issue of whether or not we really want to solve the mystery. Okay, because once you solve it, people move on. People enjoy doing this, Sean. I enjoy it. I'm an amateur. I don't go out to research or investigate. I just go out because I want to see it. I have no camera. I do have some toys in my bag right here. I've got a night vision and a thermal camera. And I'm pretty happy about that I got some toys that I can go out in daytime and I can go out in nighttime. But the point that I'm getting at is this. If we're going to call everything a hoax, which seems to be the trend over the last 5-10 years, especially with the advent of social media now in the Bigfoot world or even in the supernatural phenomena world, okay? I mean, how are we ever supposed to prove something or provide quality evidence if 50% of the population, before they've even seen it or talked to anybody, is throwing the hoax word out?
Yeah, it's very difficult. And the one thing I have to say really is as investigators, we've put so much information out there through podcasts and radio programs and TV shows, documentaries, and books. We've made it easier for people to hoax us. We've given you the golden map on how to pull off the best Bigfoot hoaxes ever. And you don't even have to do a video. You can fake an encounter without having to have a sighting. Like, that information's out there. We've taught you suspected Bigfoot behavior, and if you were somebody that really wanted to pull the wool over somebody's eyes, you could do it easily now. So in our quest to get this information out to the public and to make it more palatable and to get a little bit more scientific, we've actually hurt ourselves by putting so much out there. We've made it easier for folks to hoax us.
Oh, I agree with you. I agree we've made it easier, but do we really want answers? I mean, I can tell you right now, I got a photograph of a ghost that I sent to Butch Witkowski. I sent it to David Weatherly. I sent it to a couple other people who are very well known in the community to break down the photo. And yet I had this no-name out of Ontario say, well, your photo's a hoax. It's a hoax until I prove it. That until I see it and I put it through, then I don't believe the photo. I said, well, I don't know who you are. I'm not just going to send you the photo when I don't know who you are. And I am going to trust the people who have been doing this and have been at the top of their game for the last couple of decades. And some people you just can't get through. Because if it isn't them or happening to them, it doesn't exist or it isn't real. How do we get around that?
Well, and the thing is, my first retort to that person would be, well, who the hell are you? And I point this out to people all the time. Dr. Meldrum was wrong once before. He was adamant the Snowwalker footage was real, and it wasn't. So even the best of us can be fooled a time or two. None of us are infallible. And sometimes our passion for this leads us into places that, where we make some poor judgment. And as for it being solved, Dave, once we solve the Bigfoot mystery, guys like me are out. The professional scientists roll in, and we ain't allowed to go out and do this Bigfoot anymore because we're not needed. The guys that were once laughed at, well, thanks for getting us there, but you're no longer required. We're going to bring in the professionals now. And so there is some inherent danger of proving this exists because, and then to say the fact, Dave, that the mystery and the fun of it is gone. You start opening up a whole other world of science, where you're going from discovery science to, zoological science, right? Now you're getting into the nitty-gritty. You're getting into sociology of the creature. You're getting into biology of the creature. You're getting into a lot of, higher level scientific areas that most of us laymen aren't equipped to get into. So we're not needed anymore. So that's the danger of proving it. I don't know. I throw that one back and forth all the time. Do you really want to solve the puzzle? Because you're not going to be doing it anymore.
Well, and that's part of the big mystery. I mean, do we want to take that chance?
At one point, we're going to have to put up or shut up. So that question is going to inevitably answer itself one way or the other.
Do you want to see it, maybe for yourself, but outside of yourself, Sean, do you want to see it actually come to fruition that this creature is solved and proven real?
I do, mainly, and it's a little selfish of me to say this, mainly because people won't look at you anymore and say you're the weird Bigfoot guy. You spend all this time, all this money, all this resource chasing something that the rest of the world, the majority, doesn't think it's real. Part of me wants that vindication to be able to say, guess what? All this was worth it. Because it has taken a lot of time, a lot of resource, a lot of money, and a lot of energy to go out and do. So I would like the vindication, I guess a little selfishly, though I know it would be the end of everything I love to do.
Wow, very interesting. Very interesting. And you're willing to give that up?
If it proves it once and for all, what choice do you have? What choice do you have?
Okay, so that opens up, as we got about 5 minutes left before we got to go to break at the bottom of the hour. What, in your opinion, does happen once or if this creature is proven to be real?
Well, again, you go into, there's some big questions that have to be answered. How intelligent is it? How man-like is it? Does it fit within the religious narrative of the world we live in where they can justify its existence? How does it affect industry? You're going to have a lot of experts coming in, a lot of top build scientists coming in to take a look and getting into these areas. You're going to have a lot of money funneling into it. Something you got to remember, this community is very, in terms of funding at a massive level or a large level, is very resource poor. So you're going to have a lot more resource available to start tackling this. And then again, like I said, you start going into those different levels of past discovery science into zoological science, sociology, biology, the list goes on of all the different sciences and the different disciplines you're going to try to roll through to, get a concrete idea of what this is and how does it fit with us? Where does it fit in the, in the evolutionary line? And, does it even belong here on planet Earth, right? Is it native to us?
Do you think it is?
I do. I think that what we have is a species of ape that's managed to adapt and evolve in the climate of North America and has been able to be very comfortable here because it exhibits a lot of primate behavior. However, I could be wrong. Sometimes, Dave, you're out following these footprints and they just disappear. How do you explain that? Where does it go? Why do footprints just end? Why do people see these things sometimes carrying orbs of energy? Why do they see these things just randomly disappear and dissolve into nothing? Stan Gordon's got a great story where one of these creatures is trying to break into a house. Lady opens the door, blasts it with a shotgun, and it just explodes. It just, disappears.
That is very, very amazing in regards to that. See, I'm more of the supernatural variety. This is where you and I differ, but I think you and I are both mature enough to have that conversation. I think this creature does have, I don't want to call it supernatural, but I think it does have some interesting capabilities that we cannot explain. Example, the footprints. I almost, laughed off Cliff Barrickman on this show, who's a hell of a guy, by the way. He is a hell of a guy. But when you're trying to explain to me, and I'm no scientist, but the one thing I do know is that when you walk backwards, you're going to make a double print. You're not going to make a single print and step right back into the exact same spot with a different stride, a different balance, a different weight pressure on everything. I mean, it doesn't make sense, because that's BFRO's reasoning for the tracks that just end. Well, the creature just walks its way back. You would have a double print.
Yeah, I don't know if I buy that either, Dave, to be honest with you. I would rather leave that as a mystery than use the excuse that it backtracks, because you're talking about each footstep being perfect.
100%.
That there's no chance of error, and I can't do that. Michael Jackson couldn't do that, and he perfected the moonwalk. You know, like, how could you? How could you do? I don't know if I buy that at all, to be honest with you. But from a supernatural aspect to it, you know, the Native Americans have their own beliefs as to what this is.
And many who I grew up with believed it was either a shapeshifter or some sort of interdimensional being.
And who are we to say they're wrong? Right? We don't know.
And that's the debate. That's the great debate. I mean, do they bury their bodies? Do they eat their bodies? I mean, nature is very good at cleaning up after itself, even with bones.
Yeah, very quickly they disappear, and I think people forget that sometimes. And, you know, Gigantopithecus is, you know, what most folks, I don't want to say most folks, what some folks believe the origin of Bigfoot is, you know, a Pleistocene ape that managed to survive the Ice Age, go across the Bering Strait in North America, you know, make its home and adapt to the environment. I like that theory, but we don't have a lot of bones to prove that even existed.
Very true. We got Sean Forker for another 30 minutes here on Spaced Out Radio. We're having a great time talking Sasquatch tonight. What do you believe? Do you believe it's real? Do you believe it's flesh and blood? Is it supernatural? Do you got the woo? Spaced Out Radio continues after this. All right, we're clear.
Put the woo in Wookiee.
Mm-hmm. The one thing I will say is the intelligence of this creature is phenomenal.
Underrated. It really is. And I had an encounter too, and we, you know, if we have time, might want to go into that, because
let's talk about that when we come back.
Yeah, because I think when you talk about intelligence, I think, you know, it fits into that, you know, thought process you have, because these things. Yeah, I don't know why I internally battle so much with them being real or not, because I had a sighting, but part of it is just like, you know, what came from it. It's definitely a lot more than we give it credit for.
I agree with you. Sorry, I'm just getting some news ready here.
No, that's fine. Like I said, I don't know why I continually use the if when you have a sighting, something that you're certain that you've seen. I don't know. I think it's just my caution that keeps it going. I like to remain objective as much as possible in this field.
Well, you hope. I mean, you have to be. And I think that's what kills anybody in the field, is when you come in strong with an opinion. It's great to have an opinion. You could state it's your opinion, but you still have to remain objective.
Yeah, and if you can't have the conversation, and be willing to, like I said, have that.
Gorgeous gaming, stunning streams, unbelievable bandwidth. Welcome to another Lifestyles of Gagillionaires. Meet the AT&T Fiber customers winning at life with hyper-gig speeds. Say hello to the Walkers, a family of not one but 4 Gagillionaires, each living up their Gagillionaire life at ludicrous internet speed. First up, Anna Walker. She dominates streaming like the matriarch she is. No show ever goes unwatched under her watch.
Next episode.
Next up, Peter Walker. There's no stopping this dad bod from showing up to his virtual workout sessions.
Let's go leg day.
And finally, the Walker twins. They may look alike but couldn't internet more differently. Harry dominates his fellow online gamers while Heather group video chats with friends.
Ooh, nice background filter, Jess.
Live like a gagillionaire. Get internet that upgrades everything. AT&T Fiber, now with speeds up to 5 gigs.
Limited availability in select areas. Speeds not guaranteed. Single device wired speed max 4.7 gig per second. Visit att.com/hypergig for details.
Gorgeous gaming, stunning streams, unbelievable bandwidth. Welcome to another Lifestyles of Gagillionaires. Meet the AT&T Fiber customers winning at life with hyper-gig speeds. Say hello to the Walkers, a family of not one but 4 Gagillionaires, each living up their Gagillionaire life at ludicrous internet speed. First up, Anna Walker. She dominates streaming like the matriarch she is. No show ever goes unwatched under her watch.
Next episode.
Next up, Peter Walker. There's no stopping this dad bod from showing up to his virtual workout sessions.
Let's go leg day.
And finally, the Walker twins. They may look alike but couldn't internet more differently. Harry dominates his fellow online gamers while Heather group video chats with friends.
Ooh, nice background filter, Jess.
Live like a gagillionaire. Get internet that upgrades everything. AT&T Fiber, now with speeds up to 5 gigs.
Limited availability in select areas. Speeds not guaranteed. Single device wired speed max 4.7 gig per second. Visit att.com/hypergig for details.
Open mind. And it took me a long time to get that mind open too, Dave. It wasn't just like I woke up one morning and said, my eyes have been uncovered. It took a while to, Lon Strickler, Butch, Eric, spending a lot of time with these guys to make me realize that there is more to this being than, what my personal feelings are. The personal feelings are great, but at the end of the day, they're just feelings. When you have a lot of other eyewitness testimony that's jiving with what other folks are saying, how do you dismiss all those witnesses? Because that's not fair.
Well,
because now you're being very loose with the evidence. You're being loose with the eyewitness testimony. You're skewing your own data.
But I think people actually are skewing the evidence because a big portion of researchers now are absolutely going away from anything to do with anecdotal stories and encounters.
You're 100% correct on that. We cherry pick. And I did this presentation at the Hocking Hills Bigfoot Conference, where I talked about, just, I don't want to say the abuse, but the kind of we're not considerate of witnesses. And we're not considerate when we talk to them. We're not considerate when we take their story. And we're really not considerate with the data we take from the reports. We skew it to fit our personal narrative. And if it doesn't fit what we want, we just toss it out. It doesn't exist. And that's not scientific.
No, not at all.
I think we have to, change our idea of, what is scientific. And I think we resonate science with bones, skeleton, muscles that we don't realize there's still a lot more to this world than just, what we can touch and see. There's, a lot more that makes up this world. Just because we can't validate it doesn't mean it's not so. We're still limited, very limited by our science.
Very. I would 100% agree with you on that. And that isn't our fault. That's just where we've got to for right now. But you can't close the doors on it. It's the same with Neil deGrasse Tyson and UFOs, where he's making fun of all this, yet colleagues and fellow astrophysicists like Avi Loeb are sitting there saying, hey, Neil, what the hell are you talking about? We got the evidence right here. Why don't you come looking at it? And he's refusing.
How can we go from flying balsa wood planes in the early 1900s to jets in the 40s? Where does that scientific advancements come from? How do we take computers the size of buildings and now put them in our hand and then realize this, Dave, we've not come up with new technology. All we've done is improve existing technology. We've improved on it, but we haven't really created anything new in a while. Where did that come from? Were we influenced and affected by outside forces to help guide us along the way? Or are we just really that damn good as a species? We evolved more than people or other animals,
1 sec. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Sean Forker is with us until the top of the hour. We're talking Sasquatch, Bigfoot, and right before the break, Sean, we started to get into the intelligence of this creature. You know, we've talked about the curiosity of it, but intelligence. This thing can hide. It has the ability to pretty much freeze so it blends into its environment perfectly.
Yeah.
You know, what kind of intelligence do you think this creature has, or you've been able to research?
So I think this thing is far more capable than we give it credit for. You know, and curiosity is intelligence. Like, it's the branching off point for many different things to understand. And I think this being is a lot more, I guess, I don't want to say evolved, but it's a lot more built for its environment, and it knows how to navigate it much better than we do, knows how to adapt to it much better than we do, can use it to its advantage much better than we can. And if that's not intelligence, I don't know what you call it. I'm at a loss for words of what you would call that, besides something that could take its natural surroundings and perfect it in the way this thing uses it. Because it's the best, you know, ninja around. It's the best in camouflage. Like, we got nothing that can beat it. It can see us, but we can't see it. It's not quite fair, but it happens, right? And, you know, going into my experience, Dave, up in Clearfield County, it's why I was telling the Clearfield County stories in 2012. In the fall of 2012, I went out there with Eric Altman, Dave Rupert, Ryan Cavaline, Dustin Kinley, and Ray Hendershot, my brother Ray, who has been out with me in Clearfield beforehand. And we went out to an area we called the Meadow in Clearfield County on Rockton Mountain. And we had gone out there for the weekend specifically to see if we could, you know, get some Bigfoot activity, right? The first night we weren't planning on doing anything but setting up camp and, you know, relaxing and getting ready to go into a weekend full of activities and things. We were going to get up early in the morning that Saturday, like 3-4 o'clock in the morning, get out and start doing some research, because a lot of times that's an active time for these beings to be out. We had set up some game cams throughout the day. Eric, Dave, and Ryan left for the evening. The three of us, myself, Dustin, and Ray, were going to spend the night in camp out there. We're sitting there around the campfire, and we still have a little bit of light left out in the sky. And, you know, pretty much in a triangle setup. Dustin's to the left of me, Ray's to the right of me, and his back is to the woods. And we're having a conversation, and just out of the corner of my eye, Dave, I seen something very large just move so effortlessly and gracefully through the outside perimeter of our campsite. I looked at Dustin. Dustin looked at me. He's like, "Did you see that?" I'm like, "Yeah, I saw that." So Dustin saw it too, because we were facing, you know, kind of the same direction. And Dave, this thing moves so gracefully. I got enough of a vision, you know, a sight of it to see that it was, you know, not excessively large or tall. It may be about 6.5, 7 feet tall, but it reminded me in its build more of an NBA player than a big hulking, lurking, you know, creature. And how it moved, I can only liken it to a gliding like a sloth, but faster. How it just moved so effortlessly through that opening. And as we got up and ran over, you could hear it still continuously run through the brush. So we're a little amped up. We're sitting there for about another hour and a half. Nothing else is going on, right? We didn't go into the woods to chase after it because it had gone far. We're just kind of staying alert in what was going on. we were getting tired and we were going to get up early the next morning, so we decided to go in and get some shut-eye in the tent. We pulled the logs off the fire, put the fire out, go into the tent. About maybe 45 minutes to an hour later, we hear something walking through our campsite. Now, you know the difference between bipedal walking and an animal traipsing through your campsite. And this is footfalls going through our campsite. Ray's asleep because you can hear him over sleeping. And I see the light on Dustin's cell phone come on. And Dustin and I are like, you hear this? He goes, yeah, I've been listening to it for a little while now. So we're sitting there as it's starting to get, you can still hear it walking around. And we're lying there. All of a sudden, we start seeing this orange glow outside the tent. What the hell is this orange glow? Dustin's like, I'm going to go out and take a look. Opens it. Something had moved the logs back onto the fire. And the fire had ignited again. Right? Dustin gets out. He's looking around. You can still kind of hear something moving. And he goes, Forker, throw me my gun. Now, gun safety. I still threw him his gun. I go to put my boots on and get out. And as I go out, he goes, look. And as I turn off to my right, that same thing that we saw earlier in the evening, same build, same color, runs up this little hillside, and you can start hearing it just haul ass around the perimeter of this meadow that we're staying in. All right? I'm freaked out at this point. The big bad Bigfoot researchers, you think we'd be ready for this, but it took us so off guard. Right here's what's going on. We're getting out. And just the feeling I got from this thing, Dave, was just made me so uncomfortable. And I don't know if it was a vulnerability because we were out there in the middle of nowhere. And, at this point, I'm yelling, hey, if you're somebody out here, messing with us, you better say something or we're going to start shooting at you, right? Because, there are firearms there. We're going to take a shot at it if it didn't stop. Well, that was the threat. And eventually it stops. We go out to the middle of this meadow, which is the only place we get cell signal. And I place a call to Dave's wife, Carrie. And I said, hey, I don't know, did Dave make it home yet? She goes, no, he didn't make it home yet. I was like, well, can you have him call me or can you get him and tell him to come back here? We want to get the hell out of here. We don't want to stay here anymore tonight. We're freaked out. Something's going on here. Dave and them come back. He manages to calm us down. He's like, look, we're out here to get this. We need you to be out here, put on the good face, take one for the team. So they get us all calmed down. We go back into the tent. They're kind of bivouacking out there in the brush a little bit. Time goes by, nothing happens, right? Dave and them radioing, hey guys, I think things cool for the night. We're going to leave. They leave. Probably about 25, 30 minutes later after they leave, here comes the footfalls through the campsite again. The three of us haul ass out of that tent. We're standing back to back in the middle of this meadow to each other, right? And you could still hear this thing running around. Dustin took a glow stick, a military-grade glow stick. He throws it out into the woods. Something picked up the glow stick, walked with it, and just chucked it back down to the ground so hard it bounced, right? So we kind of got a roundabout area, and right behind this tree, you can see something kind of peek out from behind us. So I told Dustin, I said, shoot it now. Just kill it. Kill it. Dustin wouldn't shoot. He couldn't see what it was. He's military trained. He's not going to pull the trigger on a target he doesn't know. And I'm yelling at this thing, hey, you're someone messing with us, you're really going to get hurt. And at that point, the three of us decided to kind of lunge towards it. And we made a lunge towards it, and it ran off into the woods. The three of us are freaked out. We're like, this thing obviously is not afraid of us. It didn't respond or do anything to stop when we told it to stop or we were going to shoot it. It wasn't intimidated by any of that. I don't want to be here anymore. So we go back in and sit down for a while. It's starting to get a little late, and it starts raining a little bit. Quick, brilliant flash of light, Dave. Just one big, brilliant flash of light. And, nothing else happens for the rest of the night. We get daybreak happens. We pack everything up into a Rubbermaid tote, and we haul ass out of there about 1.5 miles to my van. And we're big guys, and I think I got that in 6 minutes. And we hauled ass home. I called my wife. I said, hey, I'm coming home for the weekend. I'm done. I don't want to talk about it. I'm just finished. And I almost quit Bigfoot research that weekend. The feeling I had, Dave, was so uncomfortable, coupled with the fact that this thing kept coming back. It wasn't afraid of any of our threats. How it moved so effortlessly through the woods, and it overwhelmed me. And actually, it frightened me to the point I wanted to quit. I called Eric Altman that day. I said, Eric, I'm done. Talked to Lon Strickler. Guys, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. And I didn't go back out to that area, Dave. It took me 4 years to get the courage and confidence to go back out to that area. And I went with a group of like 16 people. It frightened me so bad.
You were being stalked like an animal.
Yeah, and I felt like it was toying with us, wanting to see what we were doing. And the thing that freaked me out is the intelligence it took to put the logs back on the fire. And that's not the first time. That's the first time I heard of it, and I'm telling my story to some friends at the Ohio Bigfoot Conference. And they're like, Sean, you got to go talk to this guy. So they take me over to meet this other guy, Brian Davis, and another friend, Scott, I believe his name is. They had a very similar encounter to what we had happened to us in the Allegheny National Forest, which is just a bird's eye fly from the area where we had our encounter. So now you have two different groups of people, and maybe more, that have had a similar encounter. That really shook me. Theirs was a little more violent. They had like a tree limb come through their tent. Ours was just that stalking behavior, and that it was not afraid of anything we were threatening it with.
Wow. Sean, the feeling that you would have, anybody who is listening to this story is, like myself, is probably thinking, this is what you signed up for. This is the moment you asked for, and yet you're running like a chicken with its head cut off.
I think when you're prepared for it, you have an expectation of how this is going to go down. This happened to us when we were vulnerable. We were going to sleep. We were just doing our regular run-of-the-mill activity. When you're trying to solicit a Bigfoot encounter, an event, you're actively doing things and engaging in the behaviors. You're call blasting, trying to elicit something. We were just, at that point, trying to call it a night and 3 guys camping. And I think that is where we make a mistake as Bigfoot researchers. I think as we could go ahead and create all these scenarios and do all these things. But Dave, who are the people that have Bigfoot encounters? Everyday people doing everyday things. They're not out there call blasting and putting up pheromone chips and doing, all these creative, great tests. They're people that are just going about their daily activities. And now, hindsight being what it is, I think more luck will happen if people start being more natural and doing what you were talking about from the beginning of the show, acclimating yourself to the environment and being comfortable in the natural environment, because I think that's the key. And at the time, the fear just overtook us. It overtook me specifically. I was the most seasoned guy in the group with the Bigfoot research. It really frightened me. It took me by surprise. I wasn't prepared for what happened to us out there. And the bitch of it is, Dave, we had a Sony Handycam camcorder in the tent with night vision. None of us grabbed it.
It's amazing how your mind goes blank in those situations.
Absolutely. And we kick ourselves about it to this day. None of us had the foresight to grab it.
Sean, the fact that this creature was close to your camp, but was not showing any sort of aggression per se, of attacking the tents, of attacking, anything that was there, ripping the campsite apart. Why were you feeling fear at this point?
I think, looking back at it, it was just a sense of dread and vulnerability. I don't think the fear came from the creature as it came from the situation, if that makes any sense. I think it didn't act aggressively per se as it acted persistently, and it wouldn't go away. And something that isn't intimidated or frightened by, the threat of physical harm. You would think if it was a person, at some point they would relent, like, oh, okay, we got our jollies out of this, we're just messing with you. This didn't. And this kept going. And that created another layer of fear with me, like, either this is somebody who's really serious about messing with us, and they could be very dangerous, or we're dealing with something that we just, it's just much more, I don't want to say frightening, but just much more capable than we thought of.
Is it more about the fact that this thing isn't 500 yards away, 1,000 yards away? It just isn't. It's right there. It's within your grasp. My friend, when I had that UFO landing in front of me, looking back on it, I wish I would have walked up to it. I was paralyzed with fear because I didn't, even though I was amazed and stunned and happy, I was freaked out, scared, and absolutely frightened by what I was seeing. And I can understand your emotion of it all on how it takes over your body when you're seeing something up close and personal that isn't supposed to exist.
And it allowed me a more understanding and empathetic idea of what our witnesses go through. And now, because I experienced something, I now have a better way to relate to people who have had an encounter. Because remember, I said earlier, Bigfoot researchers want the data, and sometimes they're insensitive about how they get it. It really opened up a new way that I research and investigate, where I really put the witness at the forefront, and I'm really, caring and considerate about how I'm asking questions and how I'm, treating the witness, because we can do an awful lot of damage to people that are already damaged by this experience. And they come to us trusting us because...
With fast funding up to $10,000 available through Net Credit, our online application process was designed to get the money you need quickly if approved. You can borrow an amount that meets your needs and repay in a way that works for your financial situation. And we report on-time payments to credit bureaus, so you can build credit history as you repay. See what Net Credit can do for you today. Check your eligibility without affecting your credit score at netcredit.com. All Net Credit loans and lines of credit are offered by a member of the Net Credit family of companies or one of our lending partners. Visit netcredit.com/partners for more information.
With bills to pay and debt piling up, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. Personal loans through NetCredit can provide funding up to $10,000 to help you get back on track financially if eligible. Our secure application process allows you to customize the terms that work for you and your budget. So check your eligibility today without affecting your credit score and help get your finances back on track. NetCredit, a more personal loan. All NetCredit loans and lines of credit are offered by a member of the NetCredit family of companies or one of our lending partners. Visit netcredit.com/partners for more information.
They want us to look into what they experienced, and we do them no justice when we doubt them and we give them the cold shoulder because what they experienced may not fit what we believe. And we really have to reconcile with that and just treat people better. And when you become an experiencer yourself, you become more sensitive to that.
Well, I understand that. I totally understand that, and I appreciate that. How else did you change after this experience with the way you now do things and the way you approach what is going on?
Well, like I said, being more natural in the environment is really, I think, was the biggest takeaway from that. We talk about all the technology in the world doesn't make a difference. We talk about how can we not get one on film. You pull out a camera, you have this big shiny metal object. If you're an unknowledgeable creature, what's the difference between somebody pulling a camera up to take a picture of you or someone pulling up a gun to shoot you? You're getting this object pointed at you with the intent to do something. They may not be able to differentiate the difference between a camera and a gun initially, right? They may just run the other way. Sometimes we get so caught up in the technology, we're not paying attention to the things around us. So I've really become more leaning on being in the environment to the point where sometimes I don't even like to take flashlights, Dave, because they start, ruining your natural night vision as you start acclimating to the environment. You see better as you're out there a little longer. And just consideration. Maybe there is stuff to this gifting that I haven't seen yet because I haven't played in it, but folks are getting good results with it. So how do we not incorporate some of those things? I think I've got a lot more open-mindedness, a lot more empathy, and just a different mental state to approach this research with.
Well, I have to say this. I mean, that knowledge that you gained is a lifetime of research. It is I hate to have my Oprah moment with you here, but maybe, or my Dr. Phil moment, even though, I'm the size of 1986 Oprah. But nonetheless, I really think that you had your eyes open to something the majority of researchers have. That's not a sighting that you had. That's an encounter. That is the phenomena. And the fact that it was almost taunting you, maybe not in an aggressive way of anger, but in a way to come out and play, boys. Well, let's hang out. Let's do this thing. I mean, I don't know how I would react. I probably would have done the same thing as you.
And I replay it over and over in my mind. What would I do differently? And knowing what I know because I was in the situation, I don't know if I could do anything differently. Because when you're processing it in the moment, you just have you're overwhelmed with emotion, your logic function shuts down, and a kind of a survival mode kicks in because at this point you don't know if you're going to be attacked or what's going to happen, right? The fight or flight kicked in. And it's overwhelming. And, you put yourself in that situation with people that don't have as much experience or knowledge about a Bigfoot. Imagine how much more traumatic that is for somebody who's unknowing, Dave.
Would you recommend that experience to other people?
No, I wouldn't, because I almost quit, and it took a long time for me to get my confidence back. Many hours with Eric Altman and Lon Strickler and Butch on the phone to get me the confidence to come back into the field. And I think the other driving force is my wife was like, you're just not happy unless you're out there doing this. Like, you need to just, nut up and get back out into the woods. And and that's essentially just took me a long time to do it. And, I've got great friends that I research with. I never research alone. I don't think that's safe for anybody. There's just a whole new outlook on how to research with this was gained post that experience. And like I said, the biggest takeaway is the empathy I have for witnesses and how to treat them when they're coming to you when they don't have to. They don't have to share this with anybody, but they chose to share it. And, that should be looked at as a privilege, not a mandate.
30 seconds here. Question from Kaiju. Have you ever heard them talk?
Oh, we've heard vocalizations, but I've never heard talk like, let's say, the samurai chatter from Ron Moorhead. Like, I think people can hear the Sierra sounds until you see a Bigfoot make it. You don't know. But I think, yes, if you count the Sierra sounds, no if it's out in the woods, besides just regular vocalizations.
I hope one day you hear them. I really do. Merle and I heard it 50, 60 feet away from us. It was amazing. It was amazing. Sean Forker, we're going to do this again sometime soon, my friend. Thank you for coming on Spaced Out Radio. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, buddy. Thank you.
Coming up next, we head to the swamp. The Swamp Dweller is here. Then, Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio joins us for another cryptid tale. Spaced Out Radio continues with hour number 3 next. Fantastic show, bud. Fantastic show.
Thank you,
I'm
my
going to give you a
friend.
few claps here.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was phenomenal. I enjoyed myself. Thank you.
Yeah. I agree. It was a lot of fun, and that's the way we make things go. And we'll have you back on soon, my friend. Probably,
thank you, Dave.
probably an update in summertime.
Excellent. Sounds good. I'll have more stories.
Good. I'll let you get to bed.
All right. Thank you, sir. We'll see you later.
Much love, my friend. You take care.
You too now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Sean Forker, everybody. How awesome is he? Fapster, you called it. If a Merle comes up, I'm posting it. When Dave gives you the clap. That's awesome, D. Swagger. That is awesome. Nicola, I agree. Butch would be proud of that one. Very good show. It's been a great week of guests. You're right, the Doug Shelby. You know what? I forgot to ask. I don't think he does. Kelly Schultz, thank you. Appreciate you coming on in. That was fun. Fun show. There he is, ladies and gentlemen. Fapster, keep your pants on. Super Duke is here.
Hey, everybody.
Oh, yes. Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio, one of the channels that is a must listen to for anything to do with Bigfoot, Gugways, Dogman, Cryptids, rock and roll.
Yeah, if you want to see a little baby Sasquatch, go look at the show I just turned out yesterday. I was up at the usual area where all the big structures are, shooting, of all things, comparison video. Oh, we think we found one. Now I have to find the same spot, shoot comparison video. While I'm shooting the comparison video, the object we were looking for ain't there.
How far?
But there's
how far into it is it?
What was?
How far into the film is it?
It's a 3-minute video clip. I repeat it several times and do a breakdown on it.
Hold on, I gotta go.
When I start out filming right at the beginning of them, I zoom in and there's like several of them standing out to the side of where we caught the other suspect previously watching me film. And then I get this feeling I'm being watched, and I turn the camera slowly around and zoom in on this other spot. And there's a bunch of them laying behind this tree next to a fallen tree, next to a pine tree. And right next to the pine tree and the little fallen tree, guess what? There's a little baby's face, and he's looking right at me, and that's toward the end of it. And I go through it twice. The first time I just run it at regular speed. There's the Super X. That's me underneath it for scale.
Hold on.
You want to see how big that
Hold
thing
on.
is.
For a minute there, I thought you were wearing shorts. I was going to compliment you on your legs.
And this is the first time we found it in August 2019. That thing's 6 stories tall.
Wow.
And they have since taken it down again. Oh, yeah, that just happens naturally. Sure. Right. Not.
How far?
Also peculiarly, that's about a quarter to a half a mile from camp, actually. There's no trails or anything going to it.
Is this the baby we're talking about right here?
No, this is what caught my attention originally. I was just randomly going through the video, and I stopped on this frame, and I went, is that a head back there? That sure as bleep looks like a head back there. And then I backed up a ways and went through the video basically frame by frame and started looking at it. And I was like, oh my God, I caught a few of them on this one.
Right here? I'm going to zoom in here.
Now there's 2 of them there. There's one that's sitting down low That's a little baby, and that's the bigger, more adult-sized one right there that's watching. And when you look at the slow motion version, watch in behind them and above them because it looks like there's 2 or 3 more back in there. You can see there's where the eyes are.
Right.
These aren't the good ones. The ones behind me is the good shot where I zoomed in on the little baby.
How far?
These ones are just, there you go. See him right next to that tree trunk? There he is.
Wow.
You can see his little eyes and his whole face. The stupid camera was trying to autofocus in on the tree branches, and so it didn't really get the ones behind it I was trying to look at. There's several of them.
Is this pareidolia here that I'm circling?
No, that appears to move, but it's hard to tell because the camera was only on him for about 2-3 seconds. I'd have to have somebody with better film analysis stuff to look at that. It looks like there's actually 2 there. There's a bigger adult that's laying down. You can see part of its mouth and its nose, and then there's another bigger one laying behind it. You can see the upper part of its head. And the problem is, of course, the camera's focusing on the branch in front, not on the Sasquatch in the back that I'm trying to
And by the way, we get permission to play this, correct?
Yep, no problem, buddy.
All right. You all heard it here first.
And here I am. I'm trying to line up the shot on this teeny little spot out in the middle of nowhere and make sure that I get the exact same spot for the comparison video, which I did. There you go. It was the original one. There was something over on the right-hand side further back there.
Hold on, Duke.
There.
We're going to have to run here. Hold on. Thank you to Cherry Pepsi Mike and Steve for the super chats tonight. Thank you to all the veterans tuning us in, all the regulars with us. Great show tonight. Let's continue on here in 2 seconds.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is underway tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do us the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam is set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Nubble. Nubble is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Now, let's head into the swamp, where our resident swamp dweller, a.k.a. Swamp Dweller, comes on in and gives us another spooky story.
Hi, Spaced Out Radio listeners. This is Swamp Dweller. It's time for your nightly dose of spookiness on the show. If you have an interesting encounter or a spooky story that you would like to share, be sure to submit them in at swampdweller.net. You can also find our YouTube channel at youtube.com/swampdwellerreads. Now, let's chill out, relax, and together, let's enter the swamp. So my father has spent most of his life in the forest. According to my grandmother, it was kinda normal that my father went missing for 2 to 3 days in their local forest at the age of 6. He spent these days walking around, enjoying nature. After my grandmother realized they can't really stop him, it has become a regular thing. This love of nature has stayed with my father for his whole life. He still goes out hunting and camping regularly. I'm telling you this to give y'all some context. He has spent his whole life in nature. He knows every sound and recognizes every animal at a glance. He told me this story for the first time 10 years ago. As a skeptic, I did not pay much attention to it, as I believed it to be a story he came up with to entertain and scare us. I started to take it seriously because of how many times he retold this, and every detail stayed the same. He was visibly nervous during this tale. He is not easily scared, so I felt like I could trust him when he would tell this story, and I can believe it. So one time he spent the night in the forest with his dog, a Dachshund trained for hunting. He was walking down a road separating two parts of the forest. He then realized that his dog, who walked in front of him, had stopped walking and ran back to my father and sat down behind his legs. Then my father saw that someone is coming from the forest. He believed it was someone on the back of a horse because he only saw the reflection of an eye, but they were too high up to be a walking person. When he realized the eyes were way bigger than a normal human's. He said they were the size of tennis balls, and they were also really far away from each other. He noticed that the creature was looking around because the reflection disappeared and reappeared as if it was turning its head. When the creature saw my father, or at least acknowledged his presence, it fixed its eyes on him and came out from the trees. According to Dad, it was levitating. It was at least 50 centimeters or 20 inches off the ground. It made no sound and was skinny, but was wearing some type of robe or clothing, so there was nothing else to see besides his eyes, which colors appeared to be a mix of red, brown, and gray. He compared it to the Dementor from Harry Potter. The creature did not confront my dad or anything like that. It simply levitated through the path and disappeared into the woods on the other side of the road. This is weirder than it seems, since that side of the forest is just a narrow, 3 to 4 meters wide region of trees and stuff after the trees. There is a concrete fence to separate the forest from a factory. After this encounter, my father turned back because he did not want to risk a second meeting. He spent the rest of the night in a different area. In the morning, he went back to check the trails, but the creature did not leave any signs of his presence. No footprints, nothing at all. My dad still hunts regularly, but that definitely helps him keep on edge when he's out in the woods. I live in eastern Pennsylvania. My friend and I were hunting coyote at night at about 2 a.m. We were going up an unfamiliar logging trail. We had reached a clearing and eventually ran across a log that lay across the road. We stood up for a moment, talking, when we started hearing a sound. He said it sounded like sticks breaking. I think it sounded like something hitting a dull axe against a log, if I'm honest. The sound was, by my estimate, 150 yards or so away. I, being the more experienced one, said it was just the wind, but it was extremely irregular. The sound, by my estimate, was about 150 yards or so away. I, being the more experienced one, said it was just the wind, but it was extremely regular, like one knock every 30 or 45 seconds. It wasn't coinciding with the gust of wind, and it changed location a little bit, but remained in the same area. We also heard the noise a few times off the side of the road in the trees, and it sounded like it was approaching us, as if two separate things were making the noises. We felt uneasy and began to leave. That is when the sound stopped. After we left in my car, he pointed out that the woods became deathly silent while the noise was being made, and I pointed out that it stopped once we left. I remember people saying Bigfoot would break sticks to communicate and warn people. I looked up the noise and it's called tree knocking. It fit perfectly for the description of what happened to me. Being a skeptic, I would like to know if anything else may have been making that noise. Did anyone else have a similar experience, and do you think I may have run across some sort of cryptid while hunting that night?
Cryptid stories from the hunters. You gotta love it. Thank you to Swamp Dweller at Swamp Dweller Reads on YouTube. You can make sure you check it on out for yourself. Go hit subscribe for other spooky stories. Speaking of spooky, it is time for the man, the myth, and the legend. We call him Super Duke around here from World Bigfoot Radio, the man who wears a cape, Duke Sullivan, and the Cryptid Report. Ah, yes, good old Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio has returned, hanging on out with us for another edition of his Cryptid Spooky Tales. We love it when you're here, Duke. How you been doing, buddy?
I'm hanging in there, brother. Like, we were showing earlier during the break, I got a big week this week because I just released that one video yesterday, and I still have to have another one done for Sunday. And Eric with a K, who was in the chat room earlier, is one of the guys that's going to be on it there with me. And so looking forward to having that finished and turned out here. And also a quick shout out to old Pegleg Kenny over at Group Investigating Mystery Primates, who was the man who zeroed in on where I could get some pretty decent stuff to talk about the Nahanni Valley the last time I was on. So we owe him a little thanks there. Thank you very much, Kenny. Appreciate it very much. And today, in keeping with the Let's Talk About Things in the Far North motif that we've had going this week.
Gorgeous gaming, stunning streams, unbelievable bandwidth. It's another Lifestyles of Gagillionaires. Meet the AT&T Fiber customers winning at life with hyper-gig speeds. Meet Gagillionaire Terry. While his love of streaming horror movies has him constantly on the edge of his seat, his internet bill won't give him a scare.
Oh, don't go in there. I'm telling you.
Because since Terry upgraded to AT&T Fiber with hyper-gig speeds, he doesn't worry about data caps or equipment fees.
Come on, man. The door's open for a reason.
And best yet, he also doesn't stress about a price increase at 12 months, because with the amazing Gagillionaire lifestyle comes an exquisite sense of tranquility. Most of the time. Live like a Gagillionaire. Get straightforward pricing with AT&T Fiber. Internet that upgrades everything. No data caps, no equipment fees, and no price increase at 12 months.
Limited availability in select areas. Visit att.com/hypergig for details.
When so much of life is about the big moments, it's the details in the all-new 2022 Grand Wagoneer that makes the small moments truly special. Take joy in American premium design with available walnut trims and technology, like the available 23-speaker Macintosh reference entertainment system. And with seating for up to 8, no detail is overlooked, because it's the details that make every journey grand. The Grand Wagoneer, Grand Adventures Return. Wagoneer is a registered trademark of FCA US LLC.
I have another cryptid report from the far north.
Nice.
And it's
Go Canada.
It's not, yeah, you guys have the creepiest country. You have the coolest country north of the United States by far.
Appreciate that. We'll take that one. That's a victory.
Cool in both ways. So we're not going to be talking about Sasquatch on this one. This is a very, very strange report. And it kind of, when you hear it, it reminds you of something from Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's The Lost World. An interesting thing about this report is it came out before he wrote that book. So apparently, many of you may have heard of famous author Jack London, who wrote Call of the Wild and White Fang. And if you haven't read those books, you should check them out. Really give you a flavor for the old Klondike days up in the north there. And Mr. London made so much money off those books, if you adjusted it for inflation, who would still be one of the highest paid authors of all time. So anyway, in 1904, Jack London hired a Mr. Dupuis to translate his short story anthology, The Faith of Men and Other Stories, into French. In his letter to his publisher, George Platt, he highly recommended Mr. Dupuis as an artist, journalist, and man who knows Alaska better than I do. He's lived the life. I see in him that he has the romance, the fire, the color, and the idiom of the land. Now, despite London's praise for the keenness of his mind's eye, Dupuis was quick to assure his readers, when he came out with this story, that the events described in The Monster of Partridge Creek were witnessed by the physical eyes in his head. Quote, "The story which follows is no sense of romance," he began. "I wish in the first place to ask the readers of the following narrative to believe that I am in no way attempting to impose upon their credulity. Concerning the amazing spectacle I am about to describe, I report nothing but plain facts, however astounding and apparently incredible they may seem at first glance, precisely as they appeared to my own eyes," unquote. Dupuy went on to explain how in the early 1900s, one of his favorite Yukon haunts was a place called McQuiston Post. Although a trading post of that name once existed in the confluence of the Stewart and Yukon River, Dupuy hints in his story that the McQuiston Post to which he referred was the Northwest Mounted Police Station, which lay on the southern shore of the Stewart River opposite the mouth of the McQuiston River, about 75 kilometers west of the town of Mayo and 106 kilometers southeast of Dawson. Dupuy's friend, a French-Canadian Jesuit missionary named Father Pierre Lavignon, was tending to the spiritual needs of the nearby Clayoquot Indians and owned a cabin at McQuiston Post, which Dupuy visited every time he was in the area. One morning in the early 1900s, the story goes, Dupuy was enjoying a cup of coffee on the veranda of Father Lavignon's cabin when he heard a whistle from the direction of the Stewart River. The Frenchman glanced up from his mug and was delighted to see his friend, James Lewis Butler, kneeling in a bark canoe with an Indian at the fore and rear. The three men paddled over to the shore. Butler was a San Francisco banker who had left California in 1897 to try his luck in the Klondike. Dupuy knew that Butler had spent the last few months prospecting in the wild country north of the Stewart River and was, lost my place here, was eager to learn whether he had met with any success in his endeavors at prospecting. Butler's greatest discovery, Dupuy soon learned, had nothing to do with the gold dust or nuggets. Just 2 days earlier, the banker had been making his way overland toward the Stewart River when he came upon a cabin belonging to a man named Grant, who invited him to stay the night. The following morning, Grant asked Butler if he would like to accompany him and two companions on a moose hunt. Butler agreed, and the four men headed to the Partridge Creek, a tributary of the Stewart, which empties into the latter about 6 kilometers downstream from the mouth of the Quiston River. The hunters made their way up a hill overlooking a mineral lick off Partridge Creek, where moose and caribou often come to taste the salt. Sure enough, they spied 3 enormous moose grazing in the valley below. Before any of the hunters could get off a shot, one of the animals, a young bull, let out a sharp bellow and crashed into the southerly brush, followed closely by his mates. Quote, "We decided to approach the spot where the animal had taken fright so suddenly," Butler told Dupuy. Arriving at the Moose Lick, a spot about 60 feet long and 15 feet wide, we saw in the mud, and almost on a level with the water of the lick, the fresh imprint of the body of a monstrous animal. Its belly had made an impression in the slime more than 2 feet deep, 30 feet long, and 12 feet wide. 4 gigantic paws, also deeply impressed, had left at each end of the main imprint and a little to the side footprints, which were 5 feet long by 2.5 feet wide, the claws being more than a foot long, the sharp points of which were buried themselves deeply in the mud. There was also the print, apparently, of a heavy tail, 10 feet long and 16 inches wide at the point. The French language version of the story, Butler claimed that he and his companions found an enormous pile of strange greenish manure, which was clearly produced by some massive carnivorous animal lying in the middle of the trail further on. This ominous excrement terrified the Indians. Butler and his companions followed the mysterious tracks for about 5 or 6 miles along the wooded banks of the Partridge Creek until the coulee sharpened into a steep gulch. There the tracks abruptly ended, quote, as if by enchantment, unquote. At the conclusion of Butler's incredible tale, Dupuy suggested the two of them assemble a hunting party and locate the mysterious creature that had made the tracks. By evening, Father Pierre Lavignon, a local miner named Tom Leemore, who was working a claim on the McQuiston River, and 5 Clayoquot Indians agreed to accompany Butler and Dupuy on their excursion. The Mountie who manned the McQuiston post and a courier who had stayed in the area, both of whom were skeptical of Butler's story, rightly so, decided to remain behind, and Butler's 2 Indian guides. Early the following morning, at about 5 o'clock, the 9 hunters paddled across the Stewart River in canoes and headed into the forest. They searched for signs of their mysterious quarry all day, slogging through the brush and muskeg as they explored both Partridge Creek and the easterly McQuiston River, making their way north towards the headwaters in a nameless range of snow-capped mountains, but to no avail. The elusive creature was nowhere to be seen. That evening, the 9 companions set up camp at the crest of a cliff overlooking Partridge Creek and got a fire going. As they were boiling a pot of tea, the sound of falling stones could be heard in the ravine below. Before any of the men could investigate the commotion, a primeval roar ripped the valley. Gripping their rifles with trembling hands, Dupuy and his companions crawled over to the edge of the cliff and peered into the ravine. Across the narrow valley on the other side of Partridge Creek, an enormous grayish-black creature was attempting to ascend the opposite slope. As it struggled to gain purchase on the rocky hillside with its clawed feet, it sent boulders crashing into the valley below. Dupuy estimated that the monster measured 50 feet from its nose to the end of its tail, and that the crest of its spine stood 18 feet off the ground. Its snout was, quote, surmounted by a horn like that of a rhinoceros, unquote, while its, quote, hide was like that of a wild boar, garnished with thick bristles, unquote. Red slaver dripped from its jaws. The monster had apparently just finished its dinner. In the English version of the tale, Father Lavignou declared that the creature must be a dinosaur. In the French version, the Jesuit, through chattering teeth, identified the monster as Ceratosaurus, a dinosaur of which American paleontologist Othniel Charles Marsh had written extensively through the 1880s and 90s. The hunters watched the strange animal for a full 10 minutes, transfixed to the spot by both fear and fascination. Quote, "We were in full possession of our sense," unquote, Dupuy wrote. Quote, "There was not and never will be in our minds the least doubt as to the reality of what we saw. It was indeed a living creature and not an illusion which we had before us," unquote. Finally, when the creature recognized the futility of its exercise, it quit the slopes and bounded into the valley of Partridge Creek on two legs, moving with astonishing agility. Following the terrifying encounter, Dupuy and Butler had made a trip to Dawson City, where they entreated the commissioner of Yukon Territory for mules and 50 armed men with which to destroy the monster of Partridge Creek. Here my story ends, Dupuy wrote. For a month we were the laughing stock of the Golden City, and the Dawson Daily Nugget published an article about me, which was at the same time flattering satirical. Near the beginning of the article, Dupuy mentioned the contents of a letter that he claimed to have received from his friend, Father Lavignou, which was written on New Year's Day, 1908, after expressing his affectionate wishes for Dupuy's health and happiness, and informing Dupuy of the death of John Spitz, the mail carrier for the Duncan District Mail of Northeast of Mayo. The priest disclosed that on Christmas Eve, just a week prior, he and 10 members of the native congregation had again seen the monster of Partridge Creek a second time, racing over the frozen surface of the creek with a caribou clamp between its jaws. Quote, "His fur was covered with hoarfrost," unquote, he wrote, "and his little eyes gleamed like fire in the twilight," unquote. The priest estimated the animal ran at a speed exceeding 10 miles an hour and noted the temperature at the time of the sighting was 45 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit. Accompanied by a local Indian chief and two of his sons, Father Lavignou followed the animal's steadily fading tracks 2 miles to the Stewart River, where the animal finally disappeared. The trail disappeared finally under a blanket of freshly fallen snow. So now many, of course, have commented on the monster of Partridge Creek, believe it was intended as a work of fiction. However, Dupuy completely dissuades that notion in the statements that he made on it in the magazine in which it originally appeared, which he was a correspondent for and frequently did little articles on things that he'd encountered during his travels. So this is like really crazy. And the first time I heard it, I just went, 45 below? How can a dinosaur be wandering around at 45 below? It seemed completely far-fetched. That was many years ago. And nowadays we know that they have skeletal evidence of dinosaurs from Antarctica. Well, so Antarctica was tropical at some point. That's why there's skeletal remains there. They've also recently discovered that dinosaurs probably weren't cold-blooded. They were probably warm-blooded. And if you'll notice on some of the new looks that they put on some of these old dinosaurs that we've had skeletons of for a long time, all of a sudden they're putting feathers on them. You know, nice insulating properties that feathers have. Like birds can live in temperatures like that. Something really gigantic that weighs tons, that has the sort of build of a bird. And in this case, they didn't even say it had feathers. They said it had bristles on it. So some kind of a modified feather or hair or whatever. So the story on the face of it sounds completely just amazing, and there's no possible way. And the more you start looking into it with modern science, it's like, well, maybe there could be something like that up there. But again, after these two initial reports, there haven't been any subsequent reports, or so far as I know, any other attempts for anybody to go into the area and look for it. So that's where you stand with the incredibly weird report of the Partridge Creek monster.
That's just amazing. Not only do I got to go for headless monsters who will rip your heads off, now I got to go for a Tyrannosaurus Rex with a rhinoceros horn on it.
Well, again, Ceratosaurus, that's one of the smaller tyranids that, similar to T-Rex but smaller size. And the skeletons of them, they have a horn on their nose.
All I'm saying, man, is that if I got to go searching for this thing, you're killing me, Duke. You're absolutely
I'd recommend
killing
against it. If you do find it, it might eat you. I mean, they saw it running away at 10 miles an hour with a full caribou in its mouth. This thing's pretty big. Of course, that was 100 years ago. It wouldn't probably be, of course, we don't know how long you live, but maybe it wouldn't be around anymore, or maybe it's a lot bigger.
We got a minute to go with you tonight, Super Duke. And I'm telling you right now, if I'm going to look for a dinosaur that's still roaming up in the Northwest Territories or above there, all right, you're coming with me.
Okay, you got it.
And
you pay to get us there. I'll go.
But if we run into it and it starts chasing, we're sacrificing you first. No offense.
Well, I can't run away, but Sasquatch has my back, so hopefully one of them will be following us around.
My goodness. Tell everybody where they can find World Bigfoot Radio.
World Bigfoot Radio is on YouTube, Brighteon, BitChute, Rumble, and Odyssey. My groups are World Bigfoot Central on MeWe, which is awesome. And I'm also still over on Facebook at Montana Bigfoot Project.
My friend, we absolutely love you. Absolutely love you. Thank you for another wonderful report.
Thank you guys for having me back all the time. I love you guys too. And as you know, I'm actually on there and chat most of the time, even when I'm not on the show, because it's such a blast. I have fun with Dave, and I'm still trying to lure him down here to see some Sasquatch in Montana.
This summer, my friend, this summer it'll happen. Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio. Coming up next, it's Dave 101. And Shirky Poo has the news. Spaced Out Radio continues after this. Good job, Duker.
Thanks, Dave. I always have fun with this, and sometimes it's like, well, we're kind of on a theme here. We're talking about great white north monsters. Oh, no, the whole show is just about Bigfoot. Well, let's do something completely different. I threatened to bring this report up last time, so there you go. Yeah, you do get these really strange occasional reports of dinosaur-like creatures in different parts of the world, and especially like in the Congo. And a few of them come in from like Central and South America where they're not sure what they saw. Could be misidentifications, but those places over in Africa, the natives over there are quite sure of what they're seeing. And it's something they have names for. They know exactly what it is. They can tell you all about it. And we haven't, seen them. The only person I know that's actually gotten any decent evidence on Kele Mbembe, their brontosaurus-like creature over there, is actually Ivan Sanderson and a team that he was over there with. And they found tracks and photographed these, 3-foot-long tracks of unknown whatever it was leaving 3-foot tracks. No other known animal in the area that can do that. And the natives saw the tracks and said, yeah, that's Kele Mbembe. But there's several other dinosaur, like there's one that looks like Postosuchus. There's another one that looks like Monoclonius, sort of. Some of the weird dinosaur-like cryptids they report in the Congo are really strange. So there could still be some over there. That area is very unexplored and impenetrable.
Yes. That's a long ways from me, man.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's
it's a long ways from me.
That's like a 40-hour drive for me.
Yeah, the Congo is absolutely enormous, too. I think it's about the size of everything in the lower 48 from the Rockies west, if not even a little bit bigger. So just a tremendous amount of jungles and rivers, and nobody really lives in there except for a few local tribes. There aren't much of anything in the way of roads in the country. There's constantly civil wars and fighting going on, so it's incredibly dangerous to even go in. Not to mention the local wildlife that'll try and kill you. It's probably more dangerous than swimming in the ocean. And
the water is, it will kill you, the water there, if you drink the water.
Yeah, pretty much everything will kill you there.
Yeah.
This is the same place where they get reports of 3-foot, 4-foot long spiders coming out of, too.
Yeah. I'm never going to the Congo.
Nope, me no. Nope. Nope, not Arctic enough. I like colder environments where all the icky bugs and crawlies that are poisonous die every year.
I know the feeling.
Much safer. I'd rather be mugged by a grizzly than bit by a rattlesnake. Although rattlesnakes are yummy.
Not me.
Yum, yum. Rattlesnake with barbecue sauce. Western classic.
Yeah, sorry. All right. You sick bastard. Eating rattlesnakes.
Rattlesnakes are yummy. I used to live in a town in Texas where they had a rattlesnake roundup every year because they had so many of them locally. They'd go out and get rid of them every year, and then, well, what are we going to do with all these rattlesnakes? So they'd have a barbecue. And they'd cook up all the rattlesnakes with barbecue sauce, and everybody in town would hang out and eat all the yummy barbecue rattlesnake.
Well, if you go an hour south of me, that's where the rattlesnakes are.
Yeah. They claim we have rattlesnakes around here, but I've been in western Montana for 12 years now, and I've seen exactly 0 rattlesnakes, but I've seen a ton of Sasquatch and filmed them. So I'm leaning more toward Bigfoot is real than rattlesnakes are real here in Montana, because I haven't seen any evidence of rattlesnakes yet.
Not me. Not going there. Not going there. Any type of snake. God, I hate snakes.
No, I think we're just a little. There probably are some around here, but honestly, I know a lot about reptiles. I used to breed exotic reptiles and take care of huge constrictor snakes and stuff like that. So why haven't I been able to find one? I know where to look for them. I still haven't seen one. If they are around here, they're really rare.
Yeah, not me.
Or maybe the Sasquatch ate all of them.
That's all I'm
look
saying.
Like Slim Jims.
Not me, man. Super Duke, I got to run here. Are you sticking around, or are you?
No, I'm going to hit it. I'm exhausted. But thanks for having me on the show again.
Always,
I love
buddy.
spending time with you guys. Looking forward to next week.
We'll talk to you next week, buddy. Take care.
Okay.
Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio. Make sure you go over and hit subscribe on his YouTube channel. Big thank you to Mike and Steve for the amazing super chats. Very much appreciate the love that we get from our listeners on a nightly basis. Thank you to all the veterans who are tuning us in tonight, including the Markham, Eric Markham, the former resident scientist of SOR. Good to have you here, Eric. It's nice to have you back, man. Really is. And all the regulars out there, good to have you here. Thank you for coming on in. So it's been a fun night tonight. Very fun night. We got about 10 seconds here before we're going to go. And let's have a fun last half hour, and then afterwards I'll take some questions while I'm doing the editing. Here we go, everyone. We rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate it. I want to remind you that if you missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. It is time once again for Dave 101.
It's time for Dave 101.
I'm telling you, there is a lot to be said about our conversation with Sean Forker about the great debate of what Sasquatch is. Is it a living, breathing creature that is flesh and blood that we just have not found the body?
Gorgeous gaming, stunning streams, unbelievable bandwidth. It's another Lifestyles of Gagillionaires. Meet the AT&T Fiber customers winning at life with hyper gig speeds. Meet Gagillionaire Terry. While his love of streaming horror movies has him constantly on the edge of his seat, his internet bill won't give him a scare.
Oh, don't go in there. I'm telling you.
Because since Terry upgraded to AT&T Fiber with hyper-gig speeds, he doesn't worry about data caps or equipment fees.
Come on, man. The door's open for a reason.
And best yet, he also doesn't stress about a price increase at 12 months, because with the amazing Gagillionaire lifestyle comes an exquisite sense of tranquility. Most of the time. Live like a Gagillionaire. Get straightforward pricing with AT&T Fiber. Internet that upgrades everything. No data caps, no equipment fees, and no price increase at 12 months.
Limited availability in select areas. Visit att.com/hypergig for details.
Of yet to prove scientifically that this creature is real? Or is it what many other people believe, that it is supernatural, paranormal, maybe something from an interdimension? Maybe it's alien. The one thing that I wanted to talk about regarding this entire debate, it's not so much about Sasquatch, it's about respect. The respect that we have seemed to have lost recently over the last couple of years regarding having differing opinions of what everything is in the paranormal realm. Look, everything is paranormal, all right? If we can't explain it, it's paranormal. That's just simple science. If it's not normal, it's paranormal. Yet, for some reason, we have turned on each other instead of helping each other out in these fields. And why this has happened is a plethora of reasons. Some people are tired of anecdotal stories of people claiming to have fascinating encounters with creatures that should only be seen in the sci-fi section or the fiction section of a library or a comic book store. There are those out there who believe that if it isn't scientifically proven, it doesn't exist, and they are staunch and steadfast with that opinion. But the one thing that we have learned through this entire genre, and I haven't been around that long, only about 7+ years. That's nothing compared to the people who've been doing this for literally decades, some more than half to 3/4 of their lives. But Sean brought up a very good point, and that is we have to be open-minded to understand what we are looking for. It is okay to have an opinion, but it is not okay to rule anything out before you've either investigated it or proven it doesn't exist. That goes for UFOs. It goes for aliens. It goes for ghosts. It goes for intuition. It goes for near-death experiences, places like heaven and hell, and everything that surrounds us. Now, why in the paranormal field we are getting so mad, so angry, and so vicious towards one another when we are all searching for the same goals is really baffling to me. Whatever happened to the good old days where we could have a conversation, and even though we agree to disagree, we still show respect for each other? Well, a lot of that has to do with social media. Social media, as beneficial as it has been for shows like ours and many other millions of platforms, to be honest, has caused major rifts. People who have differing opinions or just decide that they don't like someone, all you have to do is create another profile or two and get the ball rolling because you're offended, or you don't like the way a person talks, or you don't like the way a person investigates, or the fact that they're into the woo and you are not. For some reason, we've developed an attack mode that seems to happen through podcasts, through YouTube channels, through social media posts on everything from Facebook to Twitter, Instagram, every place you can. Because everybody is a tough guy or a tough girl or a tough non-binary when they're hiding behind a keyboard. You know, let's face it, 60%, and that's probably a low percentage, of what we say on the internet, we would never, ever say to someone's face. Why? When you are in someone's face, you can see their emotion. You can see their compassion. And damn it, you can still feel when you hurt someone's feelings. Look, when you step into the public eye, like I have and many others have, it opens you up to criticism. That is part of the rules of the game. You know that going in. You know you have to build a thick skin, even though maybe some of us can't. And you know the criticism is going to be right there for you. It could be somebody who doesn't like the way you look, somebody who doesn't like the way you sound, somebody who doesn't like your opinion, or the way you dress, or the way you shave, or the way you cut your hair. And heaven forbid, my hair hasn't seen scissors in a long, long time. But you would never, ever say that to a person. You would never, ever go to a UFO conference or a paranormal conference and tell somebody how moronic and idiotic their thoughts were because they differ from yours. One of the things that we need to do as investigators and fans of this field is we need to start holding people accountable. Look, you don't have to like Lou Elizondo or what he stands for or where he worked or what he's doing, but at least show the human some respect. You don't have to like the Bigfoot Research Organization, which I'll tell you I'm not a fan of. I'm not a fan of their policies. It has nothing to do with the people that are in there. And I have no problem saying that. But on social media and within these Facebook groups, Twitter and Discord channels and everything that's in between for communication, for some reason we have become seekers and destroyers if somebody doesn't agree with us. It's not very heartfelt. At times it's not very comfortable. And it really makes you question whether or not it is worth it to keep going. This is why we see so many people pulling away from public research. They are working on their own, for their own benefits of trying to prove that there is something phenomenal going on, which maybe in turn will help the entire world and the fields that this is surrounding. Can you blame them? Not at all. Not at all. You can't blame them. Because they're tired of the attacks. They're tired of the fakeness. They're tired of the rudeness. They are tired of the childish games that are being played, all on social media by keyboard warriors. Look, there is nobody that I know that is even close to solving any of these mysteries. Whether it's ghosts, whether it's Sasquatch, life after death, or even where aliens come from. And when you have way more questions than you do potential answers, let alone the real answers, we're not solving anything. Most of us are weekend warriors who just want to do something different than what everybody else does. Look, I used to be a die-hard hockey fan, and baseball fan, and football fan. And now, fast forward 15 years later, I could care less about watching a game on TV, not because I've given up my love of sport, but because these phenomena interest me way more. This is what's piquing my interest. This is real world when you have an encounter and it becomes an itch that you can't scratch because you want it to happen again. It's the same thing when we see people ripping on those who have anecdotal stories of their encounters. Look, I understand that people out there may be a little bit done with all of these he said, she said type stories. We've heard a lot of them. We've heard thousands of them. But you know what? Every year, because of the work we have done in promoting these topics publicly on radio, on television, on satellite radio, on podcasts, on streaming services like YouTube, we have given others the strength to come forward to talk about their encounters. And just because a bunch of old-timers out there are tired of these stories doesn't mean we should be shutting people up. Communication is the way to go. Somebody who's brand new out there may have that video, may have that audio, that photograph, or that experience that literally opens us up to an entirely different realm of research. The one thing that I have learned through this entire journey is you should never close any doors, because everything in this field seems to be possible. You don't have to believe it, but you still don't know if it's true or not. Whether that's Eisenhower meeting aliens and trading humans for technology, whether that's Bob Lazar hanging out at Area 51, whether that's people like Kirk Russell, who is the first eyewitness of the Phoenix Lights, whether it's Stefan Mihalik, who got burnt on the chest by a UFO with a weird pattern in Falcon Lake, Manitoba, whether it was Navy divers at Shag Harbor seeing aliens fixing their craft underneath the ocean waters in a very, very fast current underneath the surface. We have thousands, millions of stories. And if we start shutting up these people, especially the newcomers to our field, who have finally built up the strength and the dignity to speak their mind after years of keeping it to themselves, how are we making this field go forward? They don't need that negativity. They don't need that negative Nancy out there who is going to tell them to take their story. I've heard it before. I don't need to hear it again. Who are you? Why are you coming to me with this? Do you know who I am? Yet that's what's happening. This field literally talks from both sides of its mouth. We want more popularity. We want mainstream to take this seriously. We want more government intervention to prove or disprove whether or not these phenomena exist. We want to know what they know about it. Yet on the other side of our mouths, we're saying, shut up, people. Stop telling me your stories. I have zero interest in hearing about lights in the sky or a shadow running through the forest. I've been there, I've seen it, I've heard it all, I've done it all, and I've got the gift cards to prove it. But that's what we're doing. It doesn't seem fair. It doesn't seem right. Because it isn't. And we need to do better, collectively. It all starts with a conversation. And that's what we need to do. Have civilized conversation. Get back to talking on the phone, not texting. Somebody has an issue with me? Hey, let's talk about it. I'm not afraid to give out my phone number if somebody wants to talk about an issue they have with me, and nor should you. Because here's the thing. The beauty of social media is you always have the block button. And unfortunately, many of us are not using it at the right places or the right times. Keep the stories coming. Keep the positivity flowing, and keep the drama to a minimum. That way we can maybe get to a point where we can all start sharing information, and maybe it'll lead us a little bit closer to the answers we want. And that is your Dave 101. Now, don't forget, leave a comment below if you agree, disagree, have a differing opinion. I want to hear from you guys. And tell me about it. Let's get to the news. All right, Shirky Poo has us all set up for the news of the night. As if there wasn't enough calamity in the world already, we now may have to contend with an escaped Japanese fox succubus. On March 4th, a decidedly ominous sight awaited tourists arriving to see the Sesoshiki in the mountains of Nasu, about 100 miles north of Tokyo. The Sesoshiki, known in English as the Killing Stone, is a volcanic boulder that Japanese mythology claims is the prison of Tamamo no Mae, a chaotic fox demon. But on this fateful day, just a few days ago, the seal binding the demon shattered. People who came to see the stone found that it, along with the sealing rope around it, had split in two. I feel like I've seen something I shouldn't have seen, one witness said. Of course, there was no sight of Tamamo no Mae, but if you've been imprisoned in a rock for nearly a millennium, would you stick around to find out what actually is happening around you? Probably not. If the stories surrounding Sesoshiki are true, well, we're in for a world of trouble. Tamamo no Mae is not a nice spirit. Her true form is said to be that of a fox with 9 tails, but she prefers to appear as a woman possessing otherworldly beauty and intelligence. She likes to use her looks to seduce and influence men in powerful positions, and when she does, people usually start dying. Legends say Tamamo no Mae first surfaced in China around 1050 BC. She noticed and possessed Daji, a favored concubine of Zhou, the last king of the Shang dynasty. Here he's the last because of Tamamo no Mae. Her influence drove King Zhou to bring on a reign of terror, leading to a rebellion that ended his dynasty. The fox demon next surfaced in India when she became Lady Kao, a concubine to a prince called Banzoku. According to the story, Tamamo no Mae manipulated Banzoku to personally decapitate 1,000 men. After a second brief trip to China, Tamamo no Mae took a vacation until roughly 1100 BC. She then took the role of the most cherished courtesan of Japanese Emperor Toba. The demon caused the emperor to fall seriously ill, but luckily a court astronomer recognized her for what she was. Emperor Toba sent 2 warriors after Tamamo no Mae, who vanquished her and imprisoned her in the plains of Nasu. They sealed the fox spirit into a stone that continuously released poisonous gas. However, some 250 years later, a Buddhist monk supposedly exorcised the now repentant demon. That's what the story says anyways. Many Japanese nonetheless choose to believe that Tamamo no Mae still resided in the now destroyed stone. The legend of the fox remains popular in Japan. It has spawned plays, novels, and an anime movie. But let's assume for a moment that Sesoshiki has split because of completely natural reasons. What then could have caused it? According to experts, the stone most likely cracked because of perfectly normal erosion. In fact, they say the cracks in the stone's surface first appeared several years ago. Water could have seeped through and enlarged the cracks. Yeah, we don't know. But for the Japanese, Tamamo no Mae could be on the run. Very interesting. A construction crew found a mummified body in a wall of a convention center in Oakland, California. A worker found the body in a wall that was being deconstructed during renovations at the Henry J. Kaiser Convention Center says the Alameda County Sheriff's Office. We found remains best described as mummified. The conditions in the walls were such that the body was preserved in good condition. Authorities said the body was in late stages of decay and had likely been there several years. Any theory is possible, one person says. It could be anything from someone who got in behind the wall and became trapped and died to someone put that person there. Right now, only God knows. All right, I think we got time for one more. A California-based auction house said it is selling a rare piece of movie memorabilia, the Tin Man's oil can from Wizard of Oz. Yes, GWS Auction says the oil can, one of 5 used during the filming of the 1939 movie, was presented to Tin Man actor Jack Haley after the film wrapped. The piece is in excellent condition. Bidding will start at $200,000. Thank you to Shirky Poo for the news, Super Duke for World Bigfoot Radio, Swamp Dweller, and Sean Forker for joining us tonight. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Revolution Radio, Spreaker, Facebook, the Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night.
Gorgeous gaming, stunning streams, unbelievable bandwidth. Welcome to another Lifestyles of Gagillionaires. Meet the AT&T Fiber customers winning at life with hyper-gig speeds. Say hello to the Walkers, a family of not 1 but 4 Gagillionaires, each living up their Gagillionaire life at ludicrous internet speed. First up, Anna Walker. She dominates streaming like the matriarch she is. No show ever goes unwatched under her watch.
Next episode.
Next up, Peter Walker. There's no stopping this dad bod from showing up to his virtual workout sessions.
Oh, let's go leg day.
And finally, the Walker twins. They may look alike but couldn't internet more differently. Harry dominates his fellow online gamers while Heather group video chats with friends.
Ooh, nice background filter, Jess.
Live like a Gagillionaire. Get internet that upgrades everything. AT&T Fiber, now with speeds up to 5 gigs.
Limited availability in select areas. Speeds not guaranteed. Single device wired speed max 4.7 gig per second. Visit att.com/hypergig for details.